Hi, and welcome everyone. This is Varley at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Friday, December 6th, 2024. This is show number 202 called Look Up, Cloaking Craft in Florida, Australia, Tennessee, and Texas, Part 4. It has highlights from my earlier Sky shows, with the longer format ones, covering the time frame between May 2022 through August 2023. Now I want to extend a very heartfelt thanks and warm appreciation of all of you for being here, whether you're new or returning to this channel, and whether you only have a few moments to spare to check out any of these shows, or if you can watch them cover to cover, so to speak, from beginning to end, you are appreciated. If you are new, I'll just let you know, you're coming in on part 4 of a very important series, which covers just like the best of the best. I'm recapping the highlights from my first 198 shows on this channel. Now the first shows are sky intensive. I'm doing sky observations. I cover cloaking craft, which goes from just kind of craft imprints, things you see in the sky, to actually machine parts popping out on these cloaking craft. I also cover some nature observations, and I include here and there some words, wisdom, and spirit of the day pages. So there's a little bit of variety in this for, that should pique your interest. The main focus of this channel is, one, to bring awareness to some of these sky anomalies and cloaking craft and things, but also all done in a spirit of upliftment, bringing something good to your day. Hopefully something in here inspires you also to springboard you further into looking into things on your own, especially looking up at the skies. And as I recommend to everyone, please, kindly go out each day, if you're feeling it, even just for 3 to 5 minutes, and just really look around up in the skies 360. So start any pattern you want. You can look to the east, and then to the north, and then to the west, and then to the south, or start at any of the cardinal directions and move however you like. But do spend time just really observing the skies, and not distracted with a device or whatever. And you're going to start to see patterns. You're going to start to see, hey, clouds don't move that way. There's no way like two clouds kind of can come together instead of moving together in one direction. Why is there a triangular shape in the sky? You're going to start to see a lot of things. So this show is not about all of the numerous UFOs people are seeing out in the world now, as we're evidenced by YouTube and just people on the street capturing a lot of things with their cameras. You're not going to see the blinking light stuff coming up in the slides. This is predominantly cloaking craft, and they are, when I refer to cloaking material, I'm going to call it plasma perhaps. It just means a cloaking material that's denser, more dense than just water vapor and cloud. It's a bit of a heavier material that kind of can cling to things. Okay, so I guess I should just, well, before I dive right in, because I do want to get going with the show, I do want to say, just for anybody who's returning, you've heard it before, but I want to catch this for anybody who might be new. What I do here is just take my camera phone and go out and take pictures of the sky when I see something, or even just sense something might be up there. All I'm doing is taking the original photo, and I just, with the technology that's even on the phone, doesn't have to be a separate standalone program like Photoshop or anything. It's just the technology even on the phone. All I do is play with the levels. I up or lower the color saturation, contrast, and brightness, and that's about all I need to do to really see things pop out in the photos. And then you can start to look at patterns, and then you can start to identify the different parts and pieces, and I show you how to do that, from the beginning shows all the way throughout. And what I do is I just add little tags into the photo, so I'm not adding or taking anything away as far as content out of the photo. I'm just playing around with the different attributes inherent in the photo. I also label if it's been enhanced or if it's the original, photo as we go along. Anyway, let's get into this, and I hope you can make some nice captures. As I've said before, I'm not a betting person, but I bet you go out right now, wherever you are in the world, take a picture up in the sky, and I bet you I could find, your cloaking craft and show you how to identify it if you don't see it already. That's how many craft are in the sky right now, cloaking craft. Now, when I talk about them, there's no fear associated with this. They're, if anything, benevolence or neutral ETs in some of these craft, most of them actually. If there are any negatives, those are going to be your dark military, or maybe a dark ET race, but that would be a very small percentage. So if anything starts to happen, you'll see that with the U.S. congressional hearings and things on UFOs, a lot's ramping up. There might be a certain narrative framed by the dark military or / governments or globalists, whatever you want to call it. And things could look bad, but just know that's not going to be coming from the majority of whatever cloaking craft are up there. Those are benevolents or neutrals. So don't fall for the false flag events if they happen. And the way that you can determine if something is, a positive or, benevolent craft or negative is your heart space. You're going to feel it. Just like a dog can sense if someone's good or quote-unquote bad. We have those senses. We come equipped. And as I said in other shows, of all these observations I've made, which are, numerous, because I've been out every single day looking up day and night and in between at the skies. Out of all my time out there on the streets, literally taking photos and stuff, I've only come across maybe 2 or 3 occasions where I saw a cloud coming in real low and moving funny, and it just felt bad. Didn't feel good, so I went inside, but nothing happened. So we have our spidey senses. We come equipped to sense if these things, are good, neutral, or have a negative, bent on them. All right? So anyway, that's just my own barometer so that I know and can say with confidence most of them are fine. And they're here to observe and to make sure that disclosure does happen on this planet. And that's the whole point of that second moon coming in as well. That's a craft. That wasn't a moon. And that was kind of just to say, hey, globalists and bigger governments up to no good. You either come clean on this disclosure thing with UFOs, or we're going to have to start appearing even more and more at an accelerated rate. And that's kind of what's happening right now. That's why you see so many people on YouTube are capturing more and more of these UFOs. And, and again, I've already said like how you can tell if it's of good or negative intent. Okay, I was going to say something else, but let's just move along. Okay, this is an alternate cover slide. I wasn't sure which one to go with. As always in my earlier shows, I had maybe 2 or 3 alternate cover slides, just kind of picking out maybe, if not the best of the best, something very interesting. And this happened to be a huge craft. Photos sent in by a friend of the channel called Yowie Grrrowlz, and I'm going to be covering this coming up. So anyway, this is alternate cover slide, but I do want to say, this is helping to prompt me of what I meant to say on the previous slide. So with the whole government stuff, and if a false flag, or military rather, dark military false flag event starts to happen, I wanted to say that when you listen to maybe some of the U.S. congressional hearings on UFOs, they're starting to force the acronym UAP, or they want to make that catch and be the trending, way to call them, the UFOs, identify them. I will not use that. I'm only referencing it now. I'm never going to call it that nomenclature. The reason why is that universally across the world, there are UFOs, or maybe ovnis. And my suspicion is, or what I highly suspect, is that the darker forces, if you will, want to rebrand UFOs to UAPs. And UAP, they're saying, stands for unidentified aerial phenomenon. And even that's changed, because that's what they came out with originally several years ago. Now they're trying to say it's also, it could be unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So either way, my theory, strong one at that, is of why they're doing that, or the rebranding, is so that when push comes to shove, which it is right now, and the governments need to come clean, that they've been lying to the public all these decades and decades about there not being UFOs, and even creating, 3-letter agencies, making it that anybody is a laughingstock if they happen to see something in the sky, and making them look crazy. Well, now they got a lot of, high price to pay for doing that to everybody. And they're going to have to come clean that, yes, of course, ETs and craft exist, UFOs exist. And so now they'll just say, with the rebranding, oh, no, we didn't lie. We always told you there were UAPs. And, in fact, they were lying because they covered up everything to do with UFOs. Now, when I say that ovnis, I've said it in a previous show, but I'm going to repeat it. Ovnis is used in Spanish and other Romance languages in let's see, the ovni is the acronym. So in Spanish, it's objeto volador non identificado. And in French, it's also ovni, and it's objet volant non identifié. And I'm sure maybe in Portuguese and other languages it's very similar, if not the same acronym. And of course, UFO is unidentified flying object in English and UFO in German. Now there's also USOs, and those are unidentified submersible objects, but for, main purposes, it's just UFOs. All right, I'm gonna move along. Okay, this is also just to show that other black and white image. This is the scale of this thing, and I'll get to it in more detail coming up in the show. But look at this, where my cursor is over here in the lower right. That's a road, a street. And Yowie Grrrowlz looked up and just saw weird patterning and stuff that just didn't feel right, and got confirmation from a friend that even from the air it was visible. So anyway, look at the massive scale of this thing, and we'll see why it's a UFO. I mean, you can already start to see, but we'll get there. All right, this is also just a reminder to make sure we cover this. This is also in Australia, and the credit for this photo goes to JM near Brisbane. And we're going to get to the level of detail as he, I think it's a he, or we'll just say JM, looked up at the much vaster sky, and then we eventually get to a detail where we see an actual being flying in a craft. I mean, this is just absolutely wild stuff. But this will make more sense when we get further into the show. I am going to try to speak quickly because this show could potentially be 2.5 hours long, and I want to cut that time down and streamline this as much as possible. I did want to wade in a lot of detail in the front end of this though, so it makes sense to people, especially if you're new to this channel. All right, here we go. So we're going to go into a scenario as we move through these slides. I'm going to say that these highlights from the various shows, the original is going to be on the left and the enhanced version is going to be on the right. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but you'll see that something looks a little muddier, and with enhancement it's going to be usually brighter and pop out, okay? Anyway, right now we're going to look at the originals in the upper left, and what I saw is just weird things on angle, and again, natural cloud patterns aren't going to have something coming on one angle and then a totally different angle for something else. I'm very familiar with the area, especially all of the Miami footage. When I say Florida, most of it's going to be scenes out of Miami, Florida. Some will be North Florida. But, in this state of Florida, I mean, our clouds, I've been on this planet for many decades, they're just cumulus clouds. They're big, white, puffy clouds that move across the sky in a predictable way with the wind pattern. Well, we lost the wind patterning basically back in 2012. They say that what was called the East Gulf Current just stopped. So I noticed that, not much wind. I could count on my 2 hands the amount of times that we should have a normal windy day. It just went dead still in the air. But when we did have that normal current, you just have the big puffy white clouds sailing along. Now we have these weird shaped things and weird cloud activity, and that's why it also became more glaringly obvious to me to start really looking at what are we really looking at. And we're looking at cloaking craft. So let's get into it. So we've got these things moving in different directions. So with enhancement, I see a little bit more that we got a solidity and a shape happening over here, something weird going on at C.1. C.2, we zoom in and play around with the contrast and color saturation even more. And look, these are 2 parallel lines. These are like sticks. So I'm going to say this is a elongated triangle, and that's tail fins or something on the back of this craft. Right here, that's a perfect triangle. So you start to identify symmetry, geometries, triangles, pointed ellipses, or ellipses, rectangular forms. You see, all kinds of things. And thanks to our digital technology, to me, technology is a bit of a blessing and a curse, but if used wisely and properly, it is a blessing. What the camera is doing, it's cutting through layers of all this kind of particulate and camouflaging and chemtrail stuff, and it cuts through it so that we can see a little bit more. It gives us more insights to the part of the visible spectrum that we can't quite see yet. I think we're all going to be activated pretty soon to be able to see more as well. But until then, the camera and the tools, for editing the attributes of the photos really help us to see more and more, see deeper. So I'm going to move over to the lower left. This is just a cover from one of the shows. I invite you to go, especially if I show the cover. I don't always on all these slides of the highlights, but when you do see the cover slide come up, then that's just, also an extra invitation to go jump into that particular show, because each one of these shows of the 198, I go through in thorough detail in each slide, and I really, pull out and point out to as much as I can in each individual slide. For right now in the highlights, I'm just going to have to hit and show you a couple of things and then keep moving. All right, so back over here at the Sky Flower Show, you just see straight lines, and that's a right angle, you know. You don't have that, you don't have solid objects like that if it's just, you know, water vapor and clouds that we know from growing up or, you know, earlier decades. And then here we have, again, sharp lines coming to a point. So that's already enough to show me we've got a cluster of different craft. And that's the thing. We might see an overall shape that looks weird, and it could be riddled with a ton of different craft, like flying in a little convoy together. It's not going to just necessarily be one jumbo craft, although it could be, you know, like up here, we see this, let me go over here to upper right, this whole mass, that could be just one big, you know, kind of pointed elliptical shaped craft. Or if we blew away more of the quote-unquote smoke and mirrors, we might see other little craft docking onto it, that kind of thing. All right? Now I'm going to pick up speed on this in a minute. Okay, so here we go. You see it on the left, the original, the right's enhanced. Look at, we start to see a clear curved line and symmetry. So we've got an object sitting in there. And for any of these that I just kind of touch on and then go further, I invite you to come back, of course, on your own time and really look in here. Like I like to say on my shows, the more you look at each image, the more you're going to find, the more details, and it gets really pretty amazing. Also very important, I forgot to mention, if you can, I highly recommend while you watch the show, if you have a bigger screen, like a laptop screen format, that you can watch on, and also have like a smaller handheld device like a phone and watch it there too, like prop them up in front of each other and then toggle your eyes to looking at the big format, the big scale, and then at the smaller thumbnail size scale. And you'll start to read the images very differently too and see even more and see even deeper of what's going on in each scene, okay? For now, as I narrate this, I'm doing this on a laptop, you know, scale version. So even when I go through and I air this show, which by the way, this is going to be a pre-recording, but I'll be in the chat live in case anybody has any questions. But even when I do that, I watch it on both screens as it's playing, as it's airing, and I'm like, oh wow, I found even more I could have talked about, right? So anyway, that's just a neat little tip. All right, so we'll get away from this thing at the top, and then now down below, you know, it's just looking and seeing weird light. You know, I never saw light happening like this with a lot of particulate. And again, that's not typical for Miami, where most of these I'm going to have, you know, for the Florida scenes are. That's a subtropical to tropical climate. We don't have stuff like, you know, this. So anyway, it showed me intuitively too, something's going on. So with enhancement, we can see there is some strange light source. That's not the sun. And we have something, it's backlighting an object. So very curious. Okay, in this particular scene, I look over at the original and just see strange movement, a suspected triangular shape happening over here. So with enhancement, you know, we start to see a little bit more. Now this also has a ton of particulate, and there's a lot of camouflage coming off of these craft. We'll get to it where you're going to actually see like the ends of pipes on these things, and those must be things that just blow out all this camouflage. In this particular example, I believe the craft are also emitting some kind of wave frequencies to make everything look disturbed and choppy and fuzzy. Because some of these things, it'll be fuzzy if I'm taking it too late at night towards sundown, or if it's not sundown, it means some kind of technique is being employed. You know, again, I don't know if it's like electromagnetic wave activity or something to just stir up the atmosphere enough so we don't get a clear fix on some of these shapes, okay? We're also going to be looking at color signatures. So here we have a triangle. Again, we see a straight line, and that's like a bright raspberry pink color. We go to white, a blinding white glare out. And then we have like red tones, and we've got blue. So like sitting down here is a craft, you know, it's a pointed ellipse, maybe with a hole over it, or that's another cloud passing in front of it, quote unquote cloud. As we see, this is where my cursor is down here. This is the bottom of the overall quote unquote cloud, you know, movement and system, and that's the sky below. So there's a lot going on up in this scene. All right, upper left, I'm just seeing weird colors, maybe something, you know, backlit, and sure enough, with enhancement over in the upper right, this is a big object, you know, with backlighting on it. It's a curve, you know, it's like a big elongated like teardrop or something with another object maybe coming down here. But what I want to capture on this is, aside from the other things, like I said, there's going to be a ton of things in these photos I can't even touch on that you might see. I'm only going to like pick the best of the best highlights of the highlights here. So going back to the original, looking at C is what caught my attention on this overall photo even, because something kind of disc-like was happening perched on the top of the cloud. Now I'm going to hop over to the right-hand side. You start to see something here. Now why this is important is because at this phase of my taking photos, what started presenting more and more was like craft that looked like they're just perched on top of these clouds, like it's a little landing pad, or they're like must be sitting on the deck of a bigger cloaking craft. And as I was taking more and more photos, as you'll see through the show, all of that was being confirmed that yes, that's exactly what they're doing. Now in this case, this particular craft was like rainbow. You could start to see a spectrum, and it was just like a pure light, craft made of light. And I even had a friend across town also saw this, or at least a few miles away, saw this at the same time, not knowing I was seeing it, and sent me a photo as well saying, hey, did you catch this? And I'm like, yes. So lower left-hand corner, we start to see the overall form. It's very pure, pure curve. There's something else happening in here which looks like it has some solidity to it. So we zoom in even more over here in the lower right-hand corner, and look, something pretty solid is sitting there, like a perfect curve, like a machine part. Looks like there's a hole at the end of this thing, so it looks like tubular even. And so, we keep looking further, and we see this. So this is with enhancement, so I didn't ever see it truly to this color, but close. And look at, this is a craft sitting there cloaking in a little rainbow light thing. Now that pipe that we saw, here it is, there's a hole there. So is this like something strapped to the top of this craft that pumps out all of the camouflage stuff when it wants to? I think so. I don't think it's exhaust. I think it has a express purpose to, pump out particulate to cloak it when it wants. Now another key thing I wanted to mention is, in instances like this and other craft that I see, the way that they, and I'll say they is meaning like benevolent or neutral ET races, they will let you see them for a second. It's like, that's why I say go out 3 to 5 minutes a day and just really look, because you see something kind of emerge just for a moment, and then it kind of fades away, or clouds come over it, and if you like blink almost, you'll miss it. But they do know that you are aware of them. They feel your consciousness when you're looking. And so it's kind of like they give you a little treat. They're like, you know what, we're going to let you see us a little bit. Of course, not completely with the cloaking technique, off of it. But we'll give you enough so you know what you're looking at, but not, a perfect view. So this is kind of like the slow trickle disclosure. So the very first show, they showed me just an imprint, like a darker part of the sky in a perfect triangle with cloaking material framing it so I could see it, no doubt. Then they slowly showed me other kind of cloaking techniques, like with light or with, the wave activity, but always showing just, the overall form, or if it was backlit. Then eventually they started showing the actual machine parts, and we'll get into more in a second. So here's looking in the upper left-hand corner, still an original photo, because things start to morph and change. Like I said, over the time, they just give you a little window for you to see them. They kind of come along, let you see it, and then it fades away or gets covered up. So this was morphing a bit. So I kept watching it intently, obviously taking more photos. So already you can see that now it's like dropping its rainbow camouflage and reorganizing or something. And then the lower left, again, is an original. Then it started to amp up its rainbow-ness. And then the one over here where my cursor is, starts to have a more defined rainbow, if you will. And then the lower right, look at, then it gets really clear on the shape. You can even see a little nub out here. It's like a machine, machined part of this craft. And again, this hole, we're seeing the end of a pipe. It's got reflectance in it and everything. And we have something else here. I have question marks because it's like a machine part too. All right, now we're going to shift scenes, and just in the upper left-hand corner, this is what I was saying. So with enhancement, wow, what is this movement? And again, the more you look, the more you see. So I see like a hole. I see the end of a pipe here. It gets real interesting and it gets dimensional. Then we go to the right-hand side, and this was intriguing, just seeing this weird kind of triangular thing with enhancement. Sure enough, we've got a little triangle. Now this could be two separate craft traveling together to form an overall thing, but what I think it is a craft that's kind of coming in and out of cloaking state, and that's overall one craft is what I'm thinking. Now beyond, we start to see this curious thing illuminating. Well, that's not any tricks or actually the sun couldn't even reach this from in the direction I was looking. This was looking south. There shouldn't be any flash of this color at this time of day. And when you go back in my earlier shows, I do timestamp and I put the date and the time and the direction that I'm looking, in so much as I can. Almost every case I do. So in this case, there should not be anything this bright looking to the south. So with more enhancement, we start to see two straight lines. This is a rectangular object. Then I blew out the color saturation, really exaggerating it here. And you can see where the crux of, with the color signature, where we have an object. Going back over here, we have symmetry. This thing does have symmetry to it. And then we change direction. This looks like a ring or something, and another little craft kind of zooming off this way. So again, we have change in direction. Why is this thing just stagnant, floating in the front, again with straight lines to it? And what is this shaft of light? This isn't created by the sun. There's no way there could be any light angle. So these things self-illuminate, Anyway, we'll move along. All right, I was looking over at this. What caught my attention was this strange, odd formation. Also the altitude. These are extremely low in the sky. Again, I know and I'm very familiar with the area. The clouds were never this low, extremely exaggeratedly low. On top of it, at item A, we see something of a totally different shape. Although it's in near proximity, going off in a totally different trajectory. This is coming across this way, this is going up that way. So with enhancement, we see these are two very distinct and different animals, and not just two. We have like a more dome-like shape starting to emerge with the enhancement here. We see some kind of craft in the back with symmetry. Looks like two wings with a central body to it, and other little things floating around in the particulate. And again, the camera is great at cutting through all of this so we get a better view of what's going on. Lower right hand side, we're going to look at this 8.1 element, and we start to see again more rigid shape. So again, it's got to be the cloaking craft happening in there, because natural clouds wouldn't do that. And the shape holds really rigid. Now the more you look at this photo, not the photo when you're out there looking in the field, this will present and be really, really solid. And then eventually you look back a few minutes or minute or so later, and it'll be all disintegrated. So that also wouldn't happen with, authentic, organic, natural clouds. All right, lower left-hand corner, I'm not going to read this, but I'm just saying let's talk astral spiders. This is just kind of covering a time when I also, about a year before I started getting activated to see the cloaking craft, there was a phenomenon where these astral spiders would show up, and mainly at night or right when you were sleeping and you feel like you're being watched and you wake up and bam, it was there. It looked like this kind of steel wool, crazy, chaotic ball of steel wool coming down like on a metal thread. That's what the ones I was seeing, and they were black. I know other people might see some that are like reddish brown or slightly different colors, maybe also slightly different shapes and things. But they would also be on a wall, and the moment I would wake up, because I felt like I was being watched, and they would just disintegrate or crawl back behind a picture or go into the wall. It's really trippy stuff. I do no drugs, no alcohol my entire life. So this is just a matter of seeing deeper, a matter of the quote-unquote veil thinning these days. This is why a lot of us are seeing more things like the cloaking craft, and why people are waking up and seeing more and more things with the UFOs as well. All right, and that's a phenomenon that wasn't just happening with me. I heard and saw other people reporting this, from around the world, like the UK and, other places. All right. Saw this thing. How do you have like a T shape up in the sky and it be super low and be natural? Answer is you don't. And on top of it, there's one formation here and then another weird cloud formation coming up and breaking and doglegging over horizontal with another one parallel to it. All really weird stuff. And the other strange thing is with these things at extremely low altitude, they just pop up out of nowhere and super low. So this stuff just, appears. And it's only like a few blocks away in a suburban neighborhood. So it's not like, in the old days, you'd have big puffy white clouds and they would predictably blow across and you'd see them coming from a long while away. These things are just popping up. So you also get another tip-off that these are just cloaking craft popping in and out of state, in and out of frequency in a different dimension, perhaps. So in here, it got real interesting with the enhancement, because not only do we see you can't have this happening with natural cloud activity plus a triangle hanging off to the side, you also have like this weird little thing popping up with a totally different color signature. So it got real interesting. We also have like another little arrowhead shaped one over here. plus so much more that you can't quite see, but it's enough to say, of course, this is a cloaking craft. We hop over to the right, and I put even little sketch lines over to show you the shapes of some of these things. And when you have a rigid symmetrical thing with straight lines to it, that's engineered. That's an engineered object. Now, exactly what's happening, I'm not sure. Is this one bigger craft and these little things are docked and just kind of docked to it and they all just kind of blow along? I think that's what's going on. Lower left-hand side, just the bottom is the original. Look at this. It just was showing a point and a pure curve. I mean, again, that's not natural cloud activity. So it looks like this scale of a cloaking craft. That's the other thing. There are going to be really big ones, even really massive ones. Everyone coined, the phrase is coined as mothership. Oh yes, it's a huge mothership. Or you'll see mid-size or even just these little ones. So again, it's interesting when you look at scale of some of the stuff happening. The lower right-hand corner, again, this was just an odd little strip. You move in, you see it has, more density to it, and then you start to see intelligent design to it as well. And I'm going to keep moving. Then after that little strip, I kept looking and I saw another weird little thing happening over here at 8.2. I move in a little bit more, zoom in a little bit more at 8.5. Then I put the enhancement on at 8.6, and I start to see, oh, I think we got a craft. We got rigid lines with a little bit of shadow to it, some kind of thing happening up here. So I zoom in even more and we get to this. So look, we have either a pyramidal form or just a triangular form. What this looks like is like an elongated triangle craft with something sitting on its upper deck. Who knows? Maybe this is even like a being, piloting it. But I think it's just, machine parts here. You also start to see, little things happening here. Like if I zoomed in here, you'd probably see those are triangular shaped or those are pipe holes, like we're seeing the ends of pipes. And again, I'll hop back up here and the overall you just see different. It just looks different. That's not the same as any of this cloud. So we have a rigid object. And again, in this example, it'll just appear enough, like over here, just appear enough that I see rigid shape. And then in a matter of seconds, it'll just kind of fade into the rest. So again, it's really, there's a consciousness here that knows that we're kind of locked onto it, observing it. Just like in the forest, I guess, if you lock eyes with an animal, they know, like, game on, like they see you, you see them, and if it's kind of a predator type or alpha type, you're gonna do battle. But it's just kind of like locking each other's eyes in awareness. They have an awareness of you just as we have an awareness of it, right? And so it's like, okay, we'll give you a little wink and a smile, and then it'll fade away. It knows that you saw it, right? That's kind of what's at play here. All right, upper left, this gets into the evening hours, so you can also take your camera phone, even if it's not the best quality, and just take a picture. Even if you don't know what's up there, you just feel something might be there. Here, it just felt weird. The atmosphere felt weird. The color of the sky felt weird, so I took a photo. I didn't know until I got in what I was going to get out of it, so here we already see it's like a heart shape on its side, like oblique view. And we even have shadow work, and this is a different color than the rest of everything else going on, right? We got other little weird things happening around, but that was the main focus. So we got cloak and craft happening up there too. And these things are cloaking in so many different ways. It's not just one way or the other. Some ways I probably don't even understand the physics, of how they do it, how they pull it off. And hopefully we will learn more and more soon enough. All right, lower left-hand corner, this just looks strange to the way this almost, it has a lot of structure to it. That's not a normal cloud. So to the right, this is what starts to emerge. Give me 1 second. I need to clear my voice. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. All right, so we look at the lower right-hand corner, and everything just looks strange. That's no normal cloud. It's got structure to it. Things even kind of X, things curve. So I believe in this case that we've got an interesting way of cloaking where it looks like an imprint, where it's, you still can tell their shape because there's cloaking material giving the outline and showing that it's there via showing like the void of it instead of like the solid of it being cloaked, if you can, follow my meaning. So we have a weird little stuff crisscrossing, but I think what it's doing is kind of giving us a little red herring to look at some of the brighter points so we don't get it that there's an overall pointed ellipse. Again, in a show I was on, I referred to this kind of as sloppy cloaking, where it just kind of looks like, okay, well, we can see you even if you're trying to like hide the fact that you're there. Sloppy cloaking is just my kind of tongue-in-cheek term I'm coining that because I think they're doing that on purpose. They're sloppily cloaking so that they're there. They're maybe not supposed to show us that they're there in full, but they're kind of showing us, you know, it's kind of like a little, like, do we get the joke? All right, upper left-hand corner, what caught my attention was at C. This was like a pinhole, supposedly being the sun, okay? But yet we have a brighter illumination happening above. So in the, you know, enhanced version, we see that. And I do cover on my earlier shows the whole concept of the artificial sun and the tech that's used. You know, there's even patents that were pulled in 1960s. I have that in some of my earlier shows. But anyway, this is not our natural sun. And then below, actually, if anything, that's the effect of our natural golden organic sun. Artificial sun as well is bright white like an LED. Sometimes it glares up huge in the sky, which our original sun would never do. And it's just glaring and white. You know, original sun had a beautiful kind of warm glow. Also, there's a different feeling coming off the artificial sun. Feels like you're being burned like a microwave burn when you get a sunburn. Our golden sun, yeah, it might hurt, but it somehow felt healing at the same time. This artificial tech, no. Now, this artificial tech also glares up big to cover and hide the fact that there might be some incoming planets. And in addition with all this particulate that we can't see it. But that's a whole nother story. I'll stick to the cloaking craft on this show. Now, thanks to some of this stuff, though, this could be artificial tech down here. I think it's C.1. Up here, I think that's just a cloaking craft, and it's glaring out, you know, a light signature. And it's helping to backlight another kind of somewhat of an arrowhead shape, you know, over here. So there's a craft, absolutely. It's got a slightly different color sitting right there, you know. And off in the distance, I suspect that's also kind of like a walnut-shaped craft back there. Now, here's another night shot at the upper right. And I just saw these lines doing all different things. So I'm like, let's take a look. So even with the night shot, yeah, it's a little grainy, but we can just see something's going on up there that doesn't look right. I mean, we got this going one direction, this going in a total opposite direction. The more you look at this thing, the more you'll see. Look at it 8.1, it's even like this peach color. That's a little craft sitting in there. So that got real interesting, and I invite you to go look at that particular show for more detail. Lower right, this just erupted out of nowhere. Literally, like this whole thing just started to get disturbed while I was standing out there. And then we look at all the different color signatures and, you know, all over the map. And then we start to look at individual things, and you start to see a pure triangle sitting here, almost equilateral. And then you see other little rigid shapes, symmetrical shapes. So, of course, it's just like cloak and craft all here. I will say, too, I don't want to give credit because I'm not a fan of this director at all, initials of SS, who did the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But there's a big hint drop in that movie. There's a scene, oh, spoiler alert, if you're going to see it. You might want to mute this for a minute. But there's a scene where just all of a sudden the woman runs out of the house and looks over a field, and then this kind of thing just starts out of nowhere. Well, it's a cloaking mechanism. In that case, those were negative ETs. In this case, it's good. It's benevolent or neutral. Okay, it didn't feel like anything threatening. Now we're looking over here to the lower right, and this just was strange. I mean, this is street level. These trees are not that tall. And I just see like this mist coming straight down. That's like no rain that I've ever seen happen in this area. And then I see like a ball and like a curved shape. So with enhancement, we see these are objects. You know, this is like a triad, like 1, 2, 3. I forget like a delta shape or something. And this is an arc and a sphere, you know. So there's absolutely cloak and craft all over the place. And then you even see like a vapor trail with a little craft here. So something like jumped out of here, maybe here too. I mean, again, the more you look at any of these, you're going to find so much stuff once you're onto this. Now the upper left hand, it was getting toward, you know, sundown, so it was a little bit grainy. But, you know, we have straight lines. And then what caught my attention was how do we have red and then bright white and then reddish tone and then cyan and then another thing and then a big glow. I mean, this is very unusual. So these are cloak and craft, especially if it's parallel. They're parallel lines in the sky. Over here, again, another case of just something erupting suddenly. And look at the color show back here of the backlighting. This isn't lightning or anything. This is just a different illumination happening above. And I have a theory that some of these craft are different types of beings. So there's many ET races, obviously, and also ones of many different dimensions. So we're in third dimension. 4D is the astral dimension or plane, they call it. Then we go to 5, 6, and up, and those are your higher evolved beings who have different capabilities because they're at higher frequencies, like on up to like the Jesus level, right, and past. So I have a feeling that this is a higher, quote unquote, not that one is better than the other, but just a higher frequency type being that comes in and kind of camouflages itself this way. You feel like this beautiful glow. This was not a threatening light. It felt very euphoric. So I think that's just, you know, a bigger craft probably came in, and this is the most effective way it camouflages with this disturbance of the sky. And then this, it just passes. It like comes, erupts like this. You see the glow, and then in no time it's like disintegrates and moves on, and not in a way that organic natural clouds would just move across the sky. All right, lower left, this is really low. This is like where this cursor is like the roof level. And then I started to see one lone object. And again, a lot of dense particulate, but the more you go out each day, even for 3 or 5 minutes, you start to see patterns and shapes, and you get real good at picking this out in the sky with your eyes, even just with the naked eye. So then when you pull up the enhancements on it, then you start to see, look at the perfect curve. You know, this looks like either one object with, you know, different machine parts to it, or maybe it's a piggybacking object on top of a longer, you know, bigger craft, or it's like 2 different ones. Hard to say. But anyway, we know definitely that's a rigid geometry, and looks like absolutely engineered parts on that thing. And I think there's even a hole right here. All right, upper left-hand corner, sassafras roots. I talk about sassafras. I'm not going to go into detail on that now, but I'll just make one mention of it. So sassafras root is the basis of birch beer or root beer. And so if you go out in the wild and go to a sassafras tree and grab the roots and throw them in a pot of boiling water, you make a sassafras tea, which tastes a lot like root beer. So that's just a little FYI. I did that once when I was small. And so I got some roots now, and actually I use them as little wands or pointers on some of my shows. All right, to the upper right, it just looked weird, the patterning. So again, this is an example. It's like magic. It's fun. Like, even if you don't, you know, want to really look for cloaking craft, even if you just look at this as like a graphic art exercise, it's really cool, because when they show up, you get really cool things. So here, look at this. Should all be consistently like one color. There's no sun out. This is, you know, after hours. It's like after sundown. But look at the wild color play. We've got like some kind of reddish glow, and then we've got like, this looks like an angelic little being playing, you know, like on there. So, you know, that's just not natural clouds in there. You don't get these color signatures popping up unless there's objects happening, and these happen to be self-illuminating objects. So that was a fun thing to see. So look, we've got a perfect circle happening here. So, you know, it looks like a little angelic being to me, little body flying there. But in reality, you start to see something backlit. There looks like a sphere. So, you know, again, I think this is just fun things that can show us, you know, with all the different methods of cloaking and lighting and technology that they have on these things. Lower left, at A, I was clearly seeing a very dark imprint of a perfect triangle with enhancement down here. It's still back there. There's a lot of like particulate in front of it, but it was a solid triangle. There's some mass, something's cloaking here as well. This is very low in the sky. All right, looking at this, we have one object going horizontal, another going off an angle. They're right next to each other. That doesn't happen with normal wind physics. It's impossible to be natural clouds. And so with enhancement, we see, yes, there's some kind of object. So we've got really straight line, we've got shadow work. You know, it's a little ragtag, but it's definitely no cloud. And I suspect there's a bigger craft back here, because something looks like it's happening, you know. Looks kind of like molten, like a molten ball or something. All right, the lower left, that's just to the naked eye. And then we move here and we see more of this beautiful glow. And again, whenever it's like pink or peach, and this cyan, blue, and white, bright white, it's otherworldly. So I think we're dealing with higher frequency beings, and they're self-illuminating whatever craft they have up there. And it feels like a wonder. You look up and just go, wow. Nothing fearful. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is something special happening. Even here, it looks like a little divot, like a depression, like a circle, like a dimple in a golf ball, but bigger scale. So I know there's tech up in there. And also you just start to sense this stuff. You can feel it. All right, this is really low, and I'm looking at this, and I see this shadow of a perfect triangle, and I love when it confirms it with the enhancement, because boom, there it is, sitting in the cloud. So it's probably a cloaking craft with other little, if they're not also little cloaking craft, there's little objects that I see too from time to time, around the perimeter of some of these things, and they look too small maybe to be an actual craft, but maybe more like a like instrument to read atmospheric conditions or something. You know, I'm not sure. Or they just scout the area. I'm not sure. But we'll see some probably examples of that coming up as well. All right, lower left, we've got things going on one angle and this thing pitching down on another. Again, little flag goes up. It's a craft. Can't have, you know, quote-unquote cloud activity. And when I say cloud in quotes, I mean cloaking craft or objects doing two different directions in the same proximity. This even has a totally different character, whereas this gets more solidified. If I zoomed in here now, you see these little sticks poking out symmetrically, and we have hardened lines, very hard edges, and this thing is kind of coming in and out of state a bit. On the perimeter, it's a little fuzzy because there's cloaking material sitting at the perimeter of it. All right, over here, I'm in some kind of probably, I don't know, where am I on this one? I think a grocery store parking lot. And you just look over and that stands out. You know, this is supposed like cloud, even that looks weird, but we have a perfect form, you know. So with enhancement, looking down on the lower left, there it is. That's a cloaking craft, a cloaking object. Then we look up here. Why is there this burst of a light source while everything else is dark right next to it? Well, we have a right, excuse me one second, right angle. Right here, a very rigid right angle. We also have a triangle starting to form, and each has like a slightly different hue and tone and color to it. So I suspect this is a larger craft, and these are little companion craft. Actually, the more you look at this thing, I start to see a pipe end right here. And so again, this is my, I'll say it again, the more you look at any one of these photos, the more you're going to see. Like all of these little lines and bits, you know, these are cloaking craft. All right, now I take this same photo on the lower left, and we look to the lower right, and I just blew out the brightness to blow all this away and just say what else is going on up in here, and we have a craft hiding up in there. So actually, sorry, this is a different view. My apologies. It's a view right after this though, looking a slightly different place. And there was darkness like this, and when it gets bright, 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 you start to see other little objects hiding, even in the really dark parts. Okay, that's why I put it here. All right, upper left-hand corner. This gets exciting. This is from the show called Uncloaked, and you can see in the lower left corner, it's from June 30th, 2022. Show number looks like 158. Okay. This is a rigid object with shadow to it. I drew a symmetrical line at it at one point. If I did it right now, it goes up to a point, divots down, up to another point, and back down. Symmetrical object. Now, I almost missed this completely. I took the upper left corner, the original, mainly looking at how weird the sun was looking, and the clouds just looked strange. I only found this uncloaked craft later, but quite by accident, because I started zooming in around the sun to see what's going on, quote-unquote sun. And I see this little thing at 8.1, and I don't normally go in and look at all the little fragments, but something said, no, go in and look further. So I zoomed in, and then I'm like, huh, that's weird. I was standing outside. There's no scratches on my lens on my camera. It wasn't raining, and this isn't a bug or anything. I mean, it's way up there. So anyway, I zoomed in further, you know, and then zoomed in even more. And yes, it's a little fuzzy, but no, there's no mistaking. This is a line, pure line, you know, with a dark shadow to it. So it's pretty amazing. So I tried to put some little sharpness on it and pull it out a little bit more. But either way, you know, that line maintains. It's a very straight and has a shadow. So we're talking that's an object. And it must have passed by extremely fast, because from one frame to the next, you don't see it. All right, upper left-hand corner. This just looked weird, looked like odd man out, if you will. You know, enhancement, it still looks weird. Looks like a rigid, you know, triangle. A little fuzzy around the, blurry around the edges, but we see why. Look at that thing is putting out some waves, okay? So I know we talk about HARP. If you haven't heard of HARP, you know what? I forget what the acronym stands for. I should know it. But it's about oral. What is it? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking right now. You can look it up, HAARP, I believe. Anyway, it's a technology that creates waves in the atmosphere and affects the weather. It creates artificial weather. Anyhow, this is not an example of that, because it is a localized situation. This is emanating out of this object itself. So again, the lighter, light body and lightness, a feel of some of these things. We'll look down here. And wispy-like, to me, that is more of like a higher level consciousness, cloaking in a different way. And it has a beauty to it. It inspires like an awe and a wonder, nothing threatening, right? All right, lower left-hand corner, I don't know where I have the original to this. I just have the enhanced view. But it just shows you this, you would see like, cloud if we just looked in a blue sky. But we start to see a machine part. Again, this is tubular. It's the end of a tube, and I think that's where they put out the cloaking material. And then we have like another craft zooming up out of this thing. So I think this is a much bigger craft, and this thing is shooting out. And look at it. I mean, it's got a point to it and like a little tail that's symmetrical, and it's got like cloak around it. Anyway, I'll see if I can find the original, put it in the community page if I can. Oh, going back to the lower right-hand corner, not only do we have this weird thing, with kind of like a curve and like a straight line right angle to it, we also have a sky imprint. So if you follow my cursor, that's a line, and it comes back sharp edge, sharp edge. So something else is cloaking in a different way back here, and presumably back here as well. Okay, this gets interesting. The upper left, I'm looking, just looking in the sky going, what the heck's going on here? We've got weird disturbances in one color of white, and then we got these warmer glows on these things, and they're all sitting at the same altitude, and they look kind of the same shape. And then we have like a curved line going that way, and this is just a lot of action going all over the place, different trajectories to be a typical sky. So of course I took a picture. And it's very low in the atmosphere. So here we go in altitude. So here we go with enhancement. Wow, these look like of the same family. They're illuminating the same light, and I think self-illuminating. And then we have this thing going up, and all these weird little things that do seem to have machine parts. Like that's a stick. It looks like this thing's symmetrical. This is doing something symmetrical with hard lines in it. I don't know what this thing is doing, but it kind of looks like an eagle sitting on a gold orb, if you want to look at it in a picture way. And then look, this is a hard curved line. So I can't tell you exactly what's going on here, other than we got like a hodgepodge of all kinds of craft. Now this is a cutout. It kind of looks like three, what do I want to say? If it were a leaf, it looks like three tips of this leaf. Is that a portal, and it's creating it or holding space for things to fly in or out, or is that just another way? This is symmetrical. It's a different kind of craft cloaking. I don't know. See what you see in this scene, though. As we go down, actually, I take it back. I forgot I did this. I did another type of enhancement to get at what was at D. Now we go to D.2, and this looks like a solid object in there. So it's not a portal. It looks like a solid craft cloaking in yet again a different way. Lower left-hand corner, I think I have the original for this, but this is an example of something perched on the rim of a cloud, and with enhancement we see a stick-like piece, and then we see these weird, like, tubular things coming out, and that has very much a structure to it, right? Now, some of these craft that we'll look at, I would even almost say maybe this is an organic thing, like a sky kraken. I have examples in the previous show where we actually have tentacles, and it looks like you even see the suction cups. Is that an organic life form up there that we're starting to see now too? Or is it a craft that emulates an organic life form? Like in the 2019 movie Aquaman, a lot of those craft, again, a little bit of a spoiler alert, had fish shapes, like nautical animal, shapes, whales and other things. But they were technology, they were metal, or whatever construction. Are we looking at that, or do we have some more organic life forms starting to present as well? That's a question I'm throwing out there. All right, now we're going to change gears a bit and talk about Bigfoot. I have this little figurine, and I put it out in a park and took some pictures. Actually, this was one of my earlier shorts on YouTube that I did. This one's called One Earth Family, and we're going to talk about it a bit. Yes, I have had an encounter and experience, one of a few, actually. So the first most memorable one that I remember was, the first one I recall having was when I was about 14 years old. I do appear on 2 episodes of an amazing podcast called Yowie Central with Sarah Bignell. And I'm on episodes number 66. I tell my story about that. And I also appear on show 104, where I touch on cryptids as well. So I highly recommend that. And Sarah is an amazing host. And I highly recommend you check out her other podcasts. Those are good because they're audio only. You don't have to be watching a screen, and you can have them on in the background while you do other things as well. So what I want to do, though, is because I have had an experience, and I know 1,000%, if you will, that they do exist, and they are people, not a creature, not a monster, not an ape. They're a people. I do want to read. I am going to straight up and read this because I feel it's important. These are excerpts coming from a website called ya-native.com, and it documents a lot of culture and things of the Native Americans. And I do want to read this about the Sasquatch. And let me just make sure I have the order right on this. Give me a moment. Sorry, I need to skip a bit. Oh, I put the order in wrong, so I'm going to have to go in reverse. But anyway, I do want to read this because there's some really good messages in here. Now, different cultures of the different tribes call them by different names. So I'm going with Sasquatch, of course. People refer to it as Bigfoot, but I have a page, a slide coming up where, depending on the tribe and where they are in the country or in the world, there are many different names for the same thing. Anyway, this is called A Message from the Sasquatchy People, and I'm going to read it straight out. Sasquatchitan, I am chief of Sasquatchy people. You may think we are hairy and have big feet. Really, this is not so. I come to speak to you because soon our people will come to you again. The reason we had to leave the community of human beings is because of their loss of this innocence, truth, and purity. For our race and the laws of our race are based upon these three. All true star nations practice innocence, truth, and purity. Our people did not want to leave the human beings. This is why you have seen us here and there. Your grandfathers and grandmothers who have grown through what you call years usually are those who have seen us, because the earth walk teaches innocence, truth, and purity. This is why the elders are the spiritual leaders. Our people are ready to come to the human beings again, to live with you and to teach you many things. And I do believe that's happening now, because more and more people are starting to see Sasquatch, or be having a recall that they saw them maybe when they were little. That's what happened to me. I remember my encounter, it was very vivid. I could never forget it, and yet something made me to forget it. Like it was put dormant in my brain until like 3 years ago. And then suddenly it became really prominent on my mind about the same time I was activated to see the cloaking craft. And so then I'm like, yeah, how could I have just not even thought about it all this time? So there's a timing to this, and it is the people are coming again. One of the Native American tribes, and there was a quote on this actual website about it, said that this Sasquatch comes again, or at least makes itself more, present to people at a time when there's been a psychic disruption to the community. Well, we had a major psychic disruption to this world over the past few years, and I'll just say with the whole scam plus demic, and you'll know where I stand on that. Anyhow, not that there wasn't a real illness, but it was a weaponized illness put upon certain people, who got it. And the quote-unquote cure also killed a lot of people. I'll just say it that way. But anyway, let's look at the rest of this message. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, I have it labeled. Okay, so now let me continue. I'm going to check. Yeah. Okay, I have at the bottom, if you see my cursor, I have it labeled 1, 2, and 3. I just put it in the wrong order. So let's continue with this message from the Sasquatchy people. Okay. First, human beings must purify. For when we see you, we see things that are very horrifying to us because we have spiritual sight. You must cleanse the cloud of bad spirits that surround you, the negativity, unholy feelings, and unwise thoughts. Not only do these dark clouds prevent our people from having relationship to you, it prevents you from having relationship with Spirit and having relationship with Mother Earth. We will share some practices now that will help you. First, within the sacred elements, earth, water, fire, and air, there is the power for your cleansing. If you were to bury yourself in earth and stay there for a day, you would be clean. If you were to go and stay with Brother Waterfall for a day, you would be clean. If you would stay under the desert sun for a day, you would be clean. If you would stand in the strong winds of the mountain people for one day, you would be clean. The elemental peoples love human beings. They will do service at any time for you. Take tobacco to them. Pray for their nation, and they will come to you with hearts overflowing. Then, honor their gift to you by changing the way you think, feeling with true heart, praying for renewal with Creator, and honoring Mother Earth with each footstep. The way of cleansing for human beings is right outside your door. Mother Earth and her peoples are glorious beings of universe. Learn to respect us. You look to the skies for miracles. The miracles are here. Open your eyes and see. Mother Earth is a great teacher of innocence. She is a great teacher of truth. She is purity embodied. Know your mother. Most of you came from far away to be with her and to be with the peoples of her love. We Sasquatchy are ready to join you in the community of sacred law in true heart. We will teach you how to step through those portals of time. We will teach you how to remember who you are, your starry intelligence and wisdom. We will help you learn how to be in balance with the sacred world around you. All right, let's go to the last page. Our peoples have adopted this universal law, and its sign as the symbol of our coming and as the energy of our teachings, and so you may call us through these ways. First, we will check you out. We will watch you. We will see if you are ready. Can you see the little signs? For the biggest teachings are the little things. We will be watching to see, for when you can respect that little pebble, you can respect us. You can respect who you are. Purity, go out to the sacred waters. Innocence, remember when you were very young and be that way. Truth, stop trying so hard to lie. The elemental brothers and sisters are of these essences. They are purity and form. They are single. They are true. They are unpolluted. They understand that they are the keepers of life. Learn from soil and stone. Learn from river and ocean. Learn from fire and lightning. Learn from wind and breath. They are so close to you that you cannot remember who they are, and yet not one action that you take could you do without them. These sacred element peoples will restore you, and then we, Sasquatchy, will come and teach you the community ways of being in balance with Sacred Mother. Then your lifetime will be unbroken as ours has been from the beginning. And then we have the closing greeting, and I'll try to say it correctly, Mitakue Oyasan. And that's from Standing Elk, Golden Eagle Chief, Chief Black Spotted Horse. And then the other side just shows you the source of where I got this from is directly from the yanative.com. And I think it's still going. I haven't looked to see if that website's still up. And they just ask to support if you'd like what they're about. Okay? All right, so let's continue now. That's a bit about Sasquatch. I'm not going to read through this in detail. But this just tells you the source of where, the word Bigfoot comes from, and that there are other little people, which are also the Sasquatch, but shorter. And it goes, depends on what region you're in, to what they might be called. This is a whole list of names, like Chiatanka, and, let's see, of course, Sasquatch, and there are other terms like Stick Indians, the Woodsman, Skookum, depends on where you are, right? So this tells you which tribe calls it which. So it's very interesting. If you want to spend a little time there, check that out. This is just, I think I covered this in one of the other parts of this 4-part series. Anybody from the 70s, I'm an 80s kid, but grew up, young in the 70s watching this. I was kind of terrified by this Bigfoot episode on the $6 Million Man with Lee Majors playing Steve Austin, the Bionic Man. Anyway, in 1974, there were 2 episodes where they have Andre the Giant, for anybody knows who he is, the professional wrestler. He played Bigfoot, and it was, spoiler alert, skip ahead if you don't want to know, but he played a bionic, kind of part bionic Bigfoot, and there were some ETs that were controlling that Bigfoot, and it was like this mystery that Steve, had to solve with his gang. And they start seeing clues. Obviously, they're showing you this print. And of course, they had a supposed, guy representing the Native American, a tribe on staff, and to say, oh, yep, that's a Bigfoot, foot. And he's got the plaster cast talking with people. But anyway, it turns out that there was a group of ETs in a mountain. So it's alluding to that they were in like a Mount Shasta situation. And they're observing everything happening out in the world over here. And when Steve gets too close and discovers this little band of ETs, they're discussing what should they do, and do they release him back. And, they decide to, yes, they have to wipe his brain, though, at the very end, so he doesn't remember any of this. But he has quite an experience, and this guy is holding a device which he flicks the switch, and then he goes instantly invisible, walks across the room, and shows up over here. Steve Austin has special powers with his eyes since he's bionic, and he goes like to some kind of infrared mode, and he can see the guy walking in real time from one place to the other. So we're talking about like, time, like a little bit of like a time traveler. They can freeze it, and then he unfreezes and he pops up over there. So technology to make it look like somebody just disappears and reappears, and also just talking about playing around with frequencies. Anyway, all very interesting. So if you want to get your hands on that and have a little fun and go back in time to 1974, I highly recommend you check those two episodes out if you're interested in cryptids and Bigfoot and ETs. Okay, here's another slide, kind of more along the lines of the Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day pages. This is on I think on one of the YouTube shorts I did, and it's called Tree Speak, Telepathic Conversation between, between me, Lavender Sky Panther, and a tree earth being. Now, I think I will read this. I'm going to take the time to read it because this show, more than the others, there's probably some important messages coming through, especially at a time where we're starting to see more of the craft showing up and the world might be wondering what's going on. We are going to start being activated, us as a people, especially a little more in tune with things like this, where you will notice you can have telepathic conversations with animals, with trees. A lot of you probably already know how to do this or are familiar with it or know it's possible. If you found this channel, if it's new to you, yes, it's possible. As a part of my activations with all these things lately, this is becoming more and more like a just normal occurrence for me, and a very, just like you would talk to anybody, we have this ability. And I think more of us are going to come online with this kind of ability coming up soon. And more we might even be able to read each other's thoughts or have telepathic conversations coming up as our whole human beingness as we're evolving. So I'm going to read this really quick. The M's stand for me, and the T stands for tree. And hopefully you can follow along. I'm just going to read it quickly. The first several little lines are just me speaking. So, and this is all just telepathically. So I say, to a beautiful tree I came upon in the park, I felt really guided and strongly drawn to it. So I just said, what kind of tree are you? And the tree says, an earth being. Can I talk with you? Yes, of course. And I say, you're beautiful. Thank you. Is there anything I should share with the people? And I say that the tree gave me a vision of it nodding down to me and nudging me to have a seat on the grass. And at the same time, a group of ducks started to move toward me. So there was just like a happening starting to occur. It was very interesting. So I say, thinking to self, messages, messages, the tree assuring me, I will speak to you. Oh, okay, thanks. Protect me from the harmful type of ants in the grass if you can, please. Tree says, done. You ready? Me, yes. There is a time for all things, and things all work out. Be at peace, peaceful. Things are green. Can you see them? Or are you looking at the dirt? Or can you find the magic in the dirt? It heals. I heal. You heal yourself if you let it. Your inner sun. Why aren't you all doing that? The earth loves you. I love you all. Feel the love. Feel the nurturing. Feel the wind as it plays with your hair or touches your face. Are you in touch? Can you feel into this? Close your eyes if you need to see it that way. I am here, patient, waiting. And I say, you are patient, waiting? Yes. Well, it's not what it seems, said with a laugh and a wink coming from the tree. The tree continues, you are loved, you know, all of you. My God, you're loved. Do you doubt this? How can you doubt this? Is there sunshine in your heart? Do you live today? Aren't you living right now? How are you living? Why are you living? Ask yourself, is that not enough for you to simply breathe, feel the glory that is air? Do you not dare to fully breathe it all in? Why? Why not? I love you. I care. I sing. I dream just like you. Celebrate this place, Earth, with me. And I say, I will. I do. I love you too. Thank you for sharing this beautiful message. And I was feeling the tree like lovingly looking down over me and with a nod of acknowledgement. And I say, anything more to say? The tree says, nothing more. Until we meet again, family. And I say, thank you, love. And the tree says, thank you. So that's just one example of when you just sit down at a tree and just, put your mind into neutral and just feel love and appreciation for nature. You just start to hear a hint of this stuff. Now, in this case, it was like automatic writing. I pulled out my phone. I didn't have anything else with me to write down with. And I just felt these messages in the heart coming through. So it's not like a loud voice in my ear. It's more like you just feel the words and they flow through, you know, sometimes. And then other people, you might get like actual words in your ear. All right, so I'm going to move along. All right, back to the skies now. So upper left-hand corner, I was looking and I'm like, is that a plane? And I do have a take on things. I know a lot of people are waking up now to the idea of, not the idea, the physical evidence of chemtrails, especially when things like crisscross and this stuff stays in the air forever and spreads thick and turns white. That's not a contrail or condensation trail. This, we're talking, those are chemical-filled trails. However, this I was just studying for a while to see what's going on and to see, is that a plane? It didn't really look like a plane at the front. And then we've got, look down here, we've got like rigid objects happening, but that's another story. This looks like a curved pipe with again, a hole at the end. Anyway, but let's jump to what's happening at the tip of this thing. So I zoom in and that, you know, that doesn't look like a plane. So some of these chemical-filled trails or chemtrails are being made, yes, by things that look like planes. They could be holographic forms that are, you know, camouflaging ET craft. So when some people say, like, how can these people spray the sky? It's like, you know, it might be people, but it also might not be, okay? It might be also just orbs or things that are ET technology that fly along on them by themselves and that aren't, you know, quote-unquote manned. Lower left-hand corner, we've got weird activity. Again, going back to, this was the time where crafts perched on top of, like, clouds, quote-unquote, but really under here is a craft, and this is like a platform for it to dock on or sit on a deck. But also looking at A, I started to see like a cross-like form. And again, look, we got different types of cloaking. This on this bigger thing, this up here with like light, and this like in a weird, like shadowy, kind of murky kind of camouflage, right? So we look to the right, and this thing's coming in and out of state. I've got straight lines and dark shadows, so this is absolutely object. Plus, again, no natural cloud, goes like this and then has something coming perpendicular to it, while something else is coming on an angle above. And it looks like this has a little bit of a vapor trail behind it. This, I think we're going to zoom in on B.1, also starts to have rigid little weird shapes happening and curves. So, yeah, we are going to look at it. So, up here, I think this is after things were, no, sorry, this is a slightly different example on this whole cloud system, but like adjacent to what I was looking at. We'll get to that in a minute. This and this below it relate. This in the upper right-hand corner is a continuation of, I'm going to back up right here. So at B.1, we're going to go to B.2 where I zoom in even closer. Look at this. This is a sharp line with a shadow. This is coming to a point like a triangle. This is doing stuff like the Sydney Opera House or something. You know, they're parallel to each other. This looks like a hole, whatever the heck that pipe thing is. And so this might be a cluster of different craft. This looks like a separate maybe object to this. It's just like a rumbly-tumbly jumble of stuff. Or it's all part of the same assembly. I'm not quite sure. But again, we see a point. We see straight lines. We're talking engineered technology up here. No other way to look at that. Over here, the upper left-hand corner, this got weird because this was very vapor-like. Again, sitting perched on top of the cloud. And then we have like these weird like tube-like things crisscrossing, and I could detect that to the human eye. So now down below with enhancement, oh my gosh, you know, look at this thing. You know, it looks like some object, like these things belong to one thing happening beyond, and then like this spherical thing is happening in the foreground. At least that's what I see. See what you see in this scene, very bizarre, and this goes back to the discussion. Is this an organic thing, or is it mechanical, you know, machine parts made to look organic? Again, that looks like a pipe end here to be able to blow out this camouflage smoke. See what you see. And again, also, when I say camouflage, that means is referring to something to hide things, but does not necessarily have toxins in it. It can just be literally just non-harmful smoke. All right, lower right-hand corner, this just is strange, you know, so with enhancement we see no natural cloud does that. And this goes more into the wisp-like family category. I have a show called something like Sky Wisps, and I give you my thoughts and impressions on who or what is creating that. Now, when we look to the right, we even see some kind of object with like a hole in it maybe. Hard to say, but, you know, absolutely not natural. And here we have like a line, you know, like an object, like a elongated capsule or something, while we have this going on. And look at the color signatures. How do we have all this different color burst when everything's kind of like in the same position? And again, this is kind of erupting out of nowhere in a neighborhood. You know, it didn't come from somewhere and drift along. It just sprung up, you know, shows you what it is and then fades away again. Over here, it looks like we have some structure, you know, so it's very interesting, whatever's going on there. All right, we'll start up here. I saw these triangles. It caught my attention because I like peaks and triangular shapes, and yet this is white and this is gray. They're right next to each other. We shouldn't have that going on. We shouldn't have gray cloud next to white all together in the same altitude. And then I started to detect something happening here. So we go down one, lower left, we see a totally different color signature on this thing that gets kind of like a ruddy, rusty red. This is staying true with like a charcoal gray, and we have white. So, to me, once again, something is self-illuminating in here. This is showing, presenting as a triangular form. Another line here is going like triangular form happening in there. This overall thing is triangular. So again, I'll leave this for you to really look in there on your own. We go to the right-hand side, and I've traced, for you what I was starting to see. So rigid lines like with a hole is up here, this thing here. So have fun looking about. Down here I start to see also a totally different animal, if you will. This thing has a curve and holes and different texture to it. All right, now look at this, and that doesn't look like normal clouds. These are trees. This is really low in the sky. The roof line is here. And I start to see this. So it just looks like a little smattering, a little ragtag, little, not army, but little fleet of things kind of, presenting very clearly. So we got straight lines, different little colors again. You can also just feel it. These are objects. This has like a curve, like a radius to it. And again, like they're at varying states of materializing. So this is not quite there yet. This is a little more formed, that kind of thing. And then we have a straight line here, which is another triangle, more stuff happening. And they were just kind of moving along. So we got a little posse of little friends there. Lower left-hand corner is just some of the covers. I have, I think, 3 slides called the covers. And just every so often, after like, I don't know, 50 or more shows, I kind of do a summary page or show, just showing all of the covers. And those are kind of in their own right, like the highlights of each show. This is a more detailed highlights show. But here I just go over the covers. So again, some of the best on the covers. And then in this one, I actually included a picture of myself a couple decades ago, standing in the circle or horseshoe shape of Stonehenge. And I talk about that experience in other shows, but I'm here to say that even before I knew and had my quote-unquote massive spiritual awakening back in 2010, this was prior to that, and I just felt it. There was no life or energy in there. So those stones, to my estimation, absolutely have been replaced. They've even been cemented in, which disrupts, any normal energy that would be happening between the earth and them. But it felt like there was no life in there. So I got a really good reading of life happening all around it, but not in there itself. So that's just my own little commentary on that. Anyway, it was still interesting to be in there, though. Now, here I'm looking up at the sky. I see like this line, shadowy line, and some kind of form happening. So here's what we get. And I'll say that's a cloaking craft. You'll hear me repeat myself a lot. Cloaking craft, just bear with me. Down here we start to see like rigid lines. So there's probably a much bigger craft happening even beyond that. All right, looking around, I just, was looking along. Again, this was a time where I was kind of like given the nudge to really watch the profile of the clouds for any like craft just sitting there docking on the top. And I get this, at sea, there's also something happening up here. But at sea, there was something totally different than the rest of the things happening. And look what we have. And, with a little progression here and enhancement, this is a separate object sitting on top of that cloud. Now, I made a point of saying that this is subtropical to tropical Miami because they call these lenticular clouds when you're looking at places like Mount Shasta or mountaintops, and they'll say, they meaning just the narrative of mainstream weather, will explain these away as, oh, it's just like the different air temperature is colder and it's forming the cloud, this and that. No. When you see something that looks ellipsoidal and is floating along like this on those mountains, it's cloaking craft. Oh, hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. When I step away, I gotta clear my throat. A lot of talking here. Anyway, it's not a lenticular cloud. Usually, in a case like this where it's well formed with a nice rim to it, I mean, look at this, that's a sharp line, a hard-edged, curve. We're talking cloaking craft. Make no mistake there. All right, anybody can explain to me this in the upper left-hand corner? I just see this one little, looks like a little cotton ball, friendly little happy cotton ball, all by its lonesome. So to the right, with enhancement, we see some different color signatures that it looks like maybe there's a pipe-like shape trying to form out of this thing. Little stick-like things happening here and there. Enough, like a pointy thing here. Shows me there's probably a cloaking triangle right there. So it's a little assembly, probably, of different types of cloaking craft, just traveling along as a little puff ball. All right, lower left. This reminds me of like a marshmallow zooming across the sky. If you want to see more about this, look at the show called Sky Slider. And look at this pure edge. Now this particular one was far off in the distance, but I zoomed in, and you still can, pull out things like this, even just with a basic, camera phone these days. So that was pretty fascinating. And then looking at the color signature too was interesting with this kind of raspberry color, right? All right, looking to the lower right, things looked weird. All kinds of different things happening, low altitude, and nothing seems to make sense. Hold on one more second. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, nothing looks like it makes sense. Very chaotic. I already start to see like a triangle. So with enhancement, sure enough, there's a triangle there. There's other weird stuff happening. It's a whole bunch of cloaking craft. Look at this one at D.4. Have fun looking at that a little deeper on your own. This was really wild. Okay, the two photos at the bottom are the originals, and the top are the enhanced. Let's start at the bottom. So I was talking with somebody on the street in this suburban neighborhood in Miami, and I looked off into the distance, and I'm like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And I see this, coming across. Now, I did have sunglasses on, which pulled it out even better, and I forgot to mention that tip. If you can find the right kinds of lenses on your sunglasses, like this looks brighter, like a rainbow right away, without having to do this with the camera. So I spotted it even more. I took the glasses off. I still could see it. So when it will go up. So with enhancement, yeah, that's a rainbow, but horizontal. I mean, look at this is a straight horizontal line, and that rainbow glow is right below it. I have never seen that before in my life. So there's always some type of arc or bend to a rainbow. Not here, completely flat, pretty much more or less. Has a slight camber or curve to it. Now, I saw this come up with a vapor trail, and, looking down here, I could see something vertical rising up. Sorry, I got to clear my throat one more time. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Pardon me if I have to cough here and there. All right, so this is a vapor trail going up vertically with a darker object, and, the more I looked, that's sure enough a pure triangle, okay? Happening in front and the foreground of this rainbow. So we look over here, and then, this cloud, quote-unquote, starts to morph a little bit more. It starts to have like a stick-like thing happening, and it looks like even more vapor, is rising up behind it. So we're talking, some kind of object phenomenon, happening there. That's definitely a sky anomaly. Then if we look further beyond, we see a point here, and we see a curve. So I highly suspect, look at all this activity, it's kind of radially going out of a curve, that we probably have a more massive pointed elliptical craft cloaking in an unusual way there as well. This, though, was really intense and very bizarre to see. And it was beautiful to see, though. I looked at it with wonder. I'm like, cool, how is this just going straight across? So I think the cover of this shows something called like Sky Bifrost, because it's kind of like from the Marvel, unfortunately, they bend and warp the whole truth about mythology, quote-unquote mythology, which is a whole other story. But the Bifrost was the way that Thor in that movie series of Marvel comics was, coming down from Asgard to Earth and wherever else he wanted to go to. But anyway, we also have a straight line up here and weird stuff happening all around. So we know we're dealing in the realm of cloaking craft activity happening. There's a straight line here too with a back, more or less in a weird way, backlit triangle, right? All right, upper left, just things looking weird. How do we have this weird bend thing going up here to this kind of cloud, and just nothing about this looked natural. And so we look to the right with more enhancement, and something is self-illuminating back there, and this looks like a cloaking object in and of its own right here too. So I was interested, though, in what's going on in that glowing portion. So the more I looked, just looking in here, look at this, pure triangle sitting in there, a stick, there's enough to say rigid geometry, and engineered objects. Sorry, one more time. Okay, I'm back. All right, lower left, this cloud formation just going up vertical, very close in the neighborhood, out of nowhere. You know, normal clouds don't do that. And then, you know, nothing was looking normal about this. So to the right, we see why. You know, look at this. This is a craft or object illuminating, self-illuminating. And I couldn't get at what exactly is going on in these things, but you look here and there and you get little tells, like here's another little dart shape, you know, like an arrowhead shape. So once you see your first pure triangle, or dart shape, or pointed ellipse, or whatever, you know you're dealing with a bunch of cloaking craft happening all in there. Okay, this thing is just by its lonesome. Looks like it has a vapor trail behind it. Here we go in the upper right-hand corner. What is that? Look at these two curves. It's like a curve with a, you know, it's like a pontoon boat or something, or like those planes that land, and those are the things that they land on the water. So look, you got a curve, and these two things, we've got an arc, this thing coming out. I mean, that's craft. You know, this is curved, and it looks like a star sitting on there. Really bizarre stuff. These two little curves look parallel to each other, perfectly so. That one was just pretty wild. And actually, I've never seen one like that since. Now, the lower left-hand corner, I was looking because there's a lot of beautiful colors happening, but also B piqued my curiosity. Once again, this was a time where I was kind of nudged to, you know, intuition-wise and maybe also communication-wise from my higher self or from the ETs, who knows, but to really watch the rims and watch what's perched there. And then the word I get is perched. And so, yeah, I noticed, hey, how has this kind of got like a saddle little sloop there? It looks very rigid, and the rest is kind of weird and ragtag. And we look to the right, and look at this, looks like one big long tube with an end here and an end there, like a macaroni noodle. So anyway, I'm going to keep going. Oh, with like a little rectangular craft next to it, or a deeper craft sitting there. Oh, and I'm going to go back. And also the color signature. Look at this. It just starts to glow from within. This was not coming from a sun situation, so to speak. It's self-illuminating. All right, up here, upper right, just look at this chaos, like chaotic effect. Call that staccato cloud effect when things get really kind of weird and choppy to the naked eye, and the rest is all in focus. So it shows that, again, waves are being sent to cloak a bigger craft, like waves are sent to make everything choppy. And the more we look here, look, we got a stick, and it looks again symmetrical, and then these lines, you know, all kinds of things happening up there, but not, you know, clear enough for us to catch everything. I think if you look here at the tip where my cursor is, I think this is one long, like, elongated triangular object, but choppy stuff happening to cloak it that way, right? Lower left, I just saw these two lines parallel to each other, and I thought, no normal clouds do that, plus another one seemingly parallel way down here. So with enhancement, there we go. You know, clouds don't do this. These are lines that are parallel to each other. Those are cloaking objects. All right, upper left-hand corner. This just looked weird because there's like an opening behind it that's like, you know, all cleared out. And then we have just this form happening up in the middle. And here's what we get, you know, little triangle pieces and different things, you know, straight edge here and there. So that's, to me, a big cloaking craft assembly just erupting up out of this bigger cloaking material. Okay, lower left, another example of, hey, that's not a natural cloud coming vertically, you know, just springing up out of nowhere in the neighborhood. And there's no machinery, you know, this is a few streets away. There's no, like, houses pumping this out. This is just materializing out of a different dimension, and there's cloaking craft in here. All right, I invite you to go look at the show Sky Splash Squatch to look more about what is going on here. I'm not going to cover that right now, but I think we can all agree that it ain't no natural cloud formation. The upper right, again, we got stuff happening up here, and then this pure line with shadow to it happening here. That's also very interesting. Lower left, Sky Ground is the cover for this show. We got weird things marching along, and then a weirder thing up here, and I go into a lot of detail in that too in that show if you want to have a look. Lower right, again, just, you know, strangeness erupting with the patterning going on in the quote-unquote clouds. Up here, look, you see a perfect pipe end. Excuse me if you can follow my arrow, my cursor. That's a pure circle. That's the end of a pipe, and you see stuff spilling out of it. And look at the scale of that thing. So we're talking something huge must be in the sky. And it's creating this ripple effect. Again, likely intentionally, right, to create like this disruption. And again, it kind of takes your focus away that something much bigger can be happening. All right, this just looked weird. You see a roundish object and then this all happening. This was in a, yeah, I can tell this was in the parking lot. And so it just looked all strange. So here we go. We can just see different things are happening. Looks like a little object there with like a vapor trail beyond. I'll leave this to you to look further at what could be going on there. And again, this is just weird. You know, the movements, this could never possibly be natural cloud. We have one thing going that way, one thing going straight this way. Just very strange stuff. All right, lower right-hand corner, you know, it takes us to the most enhanced, and we just see it's just really strange. That's not natural cloud, and especially down here too. We got like a stick sitting there or an object sitting there. Then over here, lower left is words, wisdom, spirit of the day. For time's sake, since I spent a lot of time on other things, I'm not going to go through and read it, but I'll leave this here for you to check it out. If you find the show, this is partnered with, there's a full page, full-size page if you want to go read it there and read the text bigger. But this just references something I saw in the sky, and again it was making a very specific shape that reminded me of this oracle card, and it's this fairy energy, so it reminded me of this. All right, weird, you know, clear patterning, so that's one issue, but the main issue of this is that there was a big cloud vertically emerging, and again looked like something specific was perched on the top. Beyond that also was a dark beam shadow in the back. And again, the way the sun was, quote-unquote, going down, it's already covered up. There's no direct light source that would be creating that shadow. So that's also got what got my interest. So we keep moving up, see here? And look how weird that quote-unquote shadow is. It's like really rough. I mean, no natural thing could possibly create that. And when you look at the cloud, there's no shadow. You know, the light source would have to be coming from where I am looking at it to create shadow beyond it, so not something shining up here. Even at the angle that light could be shining up, the profile of this does not create this. So something else is happening in cloaking and being backlit or something up there. Now, what's interesting is regardless of all of that, look how dark this is in the foreground. And then we have something pure white right on top of it. So here we go. This is the cover slide down in the lower left-hand corner. So this is pure dark. This is right there, and yet this is illuminated. Again, impossible. And so this, I think, is a self-illuminating light body, quote-unquote, craft, not in terms of weight, but in terms of emanating light. Here, when you really zoom in, this is a circle. It's got like an indentation there. This is a curve. This is a parallel curve. This is like a little thing sticking out. This is parallel to it. This is like the trace of a wing. So we're looking at, like, I think, the top of a craft that's on angle, you know, angled down toward us. So everything's symmetrical about it, and if you will, this would be the back with like a vapor trail coming off of it. So this would be like the left wing or on the port side. This would be the bow, and this would be the stern. So we look to the lower right, and then it starts to, like I said, you catch this like as crystal clear as we're going to see it for a moment, and then it starts to fade and disintegrate. So it doesn't stay there forever. It's just intended for somebody like me to catch it. Okay, acknowledge, now I disappear. You know, coming from the craft point of view. So even in its state of coming out, phasing in and out of state, you can still see it's symmetrical with like a point now in the middle with these other two little points. So the craft is starting to morph into a different shape. I still don't know what this is, and that's up for discussion. But we got machine parts happening here because we had a perfect curve and dimension, you know, shadow and all that. All right, I'm going to start to step this up and go a little faster because I didn't even look at when the start time of this was, and don't want to make it too long. Anyway, here that beam now changes from that weird, you know, shaggy, like scrappy thing to a more clear, dark beam. So again, what the heck is going on here? Maybe you have some good ideas. I don't at the moment. Looking here to an extreme enhancement, we have a different color around the rim of this thing, and this entire thing is illuminating in a different way. This has to be another bigger type of craft also, floating by in the background. All right, now we're going to jump over to Texas. There's a show that I have called Talking Texas Skies with a very kind viewer, friend of the channel, providing the photos. I have the photo credits listed here and in the show. Actually, I forgot to write my notes to give you the name of the person that they gave, or if it was anonymous, I don't remember. But anyway, kind people out of Texas sent these in, and the show is dedicated to this. So you might want to hop over there and check it out. And this is also illustrating the point that no matter where you live in the world, if you go outside right now, whether day or night, take a photo, you're going to have something anomalous in there, or something that, you know, reveals cloaking craft. In this case, to the upper right was the original of what the viewer was seeing. And the kind people who submitted this said, yeah, we just saw this, you know, big ellipse. You know, they could just see it felt like a pure ring. And so I just put a sketch tool over it to show, yeah, that's what they were seeing, you know, clearly, like the void of that. So they thought, hey, something must be going on. And in the course of that show, yes, I see lots of stuff going on, and I point out what it is. Now, in this case, there is a backlit kind of triangular shape, if you look over here, and it's almost like it has a trail, you know, coming behind it and is zoomed into position. Now, the lower left is wrapping up from up here. Sorry about that. It's wrapping up from here, so our little shape that was rigid is now starting to turn a little more amorphous, you know, looks a little more blurred out. And it definitely is still there, but just changed shape and is maybe phasing out of the picture. But that's, again, that's what was on the cover, but now it looks like this over, you know, a few minutes' time. And then zooming back in on this older scene, this is like blurred out like this, but this is what it looks like with extreme enhancement and color saturation. So there's still a source, I would say a power source of bright light there, and then some kind of glow happening around it. So I don't know how this thing, you know, cloaks. I think part of the cloaking is with light itself. You know, again, there's kind of like a hole or indentation, just pretty wild. All right, now, sorry I'm jumping around. This is back to Texas. So now we're going to go back up to that triangle I was talking about in the upper right-hand corner. Here it is, and with some kind of swath behind it or another object. There's a stick. Again, I invite you to just go into the show itself. Here's what I show you what could be potentially going on with looking at some of the shapes. There could be more ways to interpret it. This is just what I was getting off of it at the time. And then I have my little notes here too, you know, like cloaking craft, pipe-like form here. And again, I invite you to kind of look at these more in your own time, just for time's sake for me to get through the show. Then there was also like it looks like a chemtrail with a little point there. And it looks possibly very much not like a plane, but, you know, maybe there's some kind of object or orb. A little hard to tell, but I suspect that's an orb and not a plane. All right, more in Texas, and then we just go through. They saw an object like coming in front of what's supposed to be the sun, and I have my notes there. And then look at this weird thing with all the texture on it. That's got to be like the top of some wild-looking craft. And as I often say, I would just love for all this smoke and mirrors garbage to be out of the way so we can just see these things, you know, for what they are. Because, again, it'd be pretty wild to see all these different types and varieties of craft just with the naked eye would be really cool. You know, especially if you know that most of these are benevolents or neutrals, or should there be a threatening, you know, race or something up there. Again, I think they are severely outnumbered and know that they just kind of need to not try anything stupid. All right, now up here, 8.1, we see evidence of a triangle. That's what they saw too when they sent this in. And I'm also seeing little pipes and things happening over here, so I know cloaking craft is there. But for now, you know, just trace over, you know, this is the bigger triangle they were seeing. Now this could be one bigger craft coming in and out of state, or it might be like 3 different craft that are forming that overall, you know, impression. That I'm not sure. See what you think. And hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. Let's move on. Oh, I did move in a little bit more. So there's that triangle they were looking at. And then down here, we have the question marks in the lower right tip of that triangle. And this is like a little pill-shaped craft as well, where I have the question marks. I zoom in on that part because I found it interesting because there seemed to be like a curve or a rim, almost like the bow of a boat, you know, clear edge. And so I zoomed in to find out more, but I kind of got stopped right there. What I think is happening is that this is a very, you know, it looks like the specific front of a ship. I think what we're seeing is that emerged out of cloak or out of frequency, whatever it's doing. And this looks like a bar with some like vertical pipes on it. So I think we're just seeing part of the front of an overall bigger cloaking craft maybe. See what you think there. All right, here we get to, yes, we're getting to the fun part. So here's what I showed at the very beginning of the show. Just one slide or a couple slides to get into this, or at least reference that this is on the horizon. So here in the lower right, we have a roadway, just to give you a sense of scale of what's above in the sky. So again, this came, if you're just joining in now to see this, these photo credits go to Yowie Grrrowlz in Eastern Australia. And Yowie Grrrowlz noticed while on the highway, to the naked eye, just saw some weird patterning up there and really questioned it. And Yowie Grrrowlz was able to get confirmation from somebody else that this was also seen from the sky, from an airplane. So it was very much there. And Yowie Grrrowlz sent this in for me to just do a little analysis to see what could be going on. And but anyway, before I even get there, I'll show you the original photos and how I got to even seeing this. But the more I zoomed in, you know, I saw definitely this is like a specific patterning. You know, look at these are regularized lines, and they move this way and then perpendicular. So I knew there was a structure happening. And then I saw this overall line and realized how massive this thing is. And then on top of it, this is a round rim with another shape in it. I have better views coming up. So it almost looks like a kazoo, you know, like the top of a kazoo. But this reminded me immediately of the opening scene from Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Well, one of the near the beginning of the movie, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, where we have this huge, you know, not a boat, like Krillian ship, you know, the Empire's ship, and then in the foreground is like I think that's Rey moving along on her little. Whatever she drives, her little craft, her little land speeder. So giving you, you know, a good idea of the scale of this thing that crashed down into the planet. And, oh, this is a crashed X-Wing fighter or something in the foreground, so you get a, you know, sense of how big these things are. Well, that's what this is reminding me of. If I go back to, like, the road and there's, like, a little car going along and you got this thing, it's exactly reminding me of this or her and this huge craft. So we're going to keep looking. Oh, this is, I just did reference about ovnis and UFOs, but I already covered that earlier in the show. But anyway, let's get to this. So the upper two photos are what were submitted by Yowie Grrrowlz. Thanks again, Yowie Grrrowlz, if you're out there and listening. But the upper left is another example. This is like, you know, from the car dash and dashboard. And then here we have this huge thing sitting there. And we have two parallel, like, sticks, you know, with enhancement. We see we have, like, these are both parallel. Something else looks like it's flying off of there. So this is a massive, massive craft. And as a part of the show, I invite you to go look at this overall show, because, again, break it down in detail over there. I'm not going to be able to do it here. But over there, even you'll see, like, this is a craft with a vapor trail flying across. So you'll see a lot of these, what I call companion craft, flying next to bigger, you know, craft and stuff. It's very much like the sci-fi movies, like Star Wars, etc. And down here in the lower left, like this here where I'm pointing, that's little dirt on her windshield of Yowie Grrrowlz. But beyond that, this definitely was not. And again, this is confirmed by somebody else who could even see this from the air. And so we had, you know, two accounts to corroborate what's going on. Now down here, we have this comes down eventually to a point. You know, we got a little bit of cloaking interference here in the front, because if you go into each of these little clouds, you'll see cloaking craft as well. But here, look, we have like a perfect parallel lines. This looks like the front of a pie if you cut a slice of a pie. And then we go to the right and we zoom in. Look at the texture on this thing. It's really cool. That's like the hull or something kind of metallic, or, you know, some material we don't quite understand. Very intricate and detailed, very incredible. Very meant to be seen by this particular, you know, friend of the channel. Very kind person. So look at this. You know, again, I'm just putting enhancement on to see what else is going on. And actually, now that I'm looking, it even looks like we have a sphere going on in the background. Anyway, we'll look at it again. Here's the road in the upper right-hand corner. The road is below. Look at the size of this thing. So now with this enhancement, we see a clear rim with another rim inside of it. So again, lower left, here we go. I'm zooming in a little more. It's a little fuzzy, but you get the picture. You know, it's a rim with another little half semicircle rim inside of it. So again, this overall thing, I just traced really kind of crude lines. I didn't have the software that I needed to do this, to like, that wouldn't be a full line, it would be a semicircle inside. But you get the idea. This has depth and dimension and intelligent design to it. So Yowie Grrrowlz absolutely caught a massive craft. All right, here's another, you know, view of, you know, in time, going along the road and catching it at a different moment. But again, we still see it. It stays very true. Then there is also another view with this thing coming horizontal out of this kind of cloud. And we see that it's got like a rainbow, you know, color signatures all over this thing. It's got weird, like, fraying things. It reminds me of like a lionfish, just as the feel I get off of this thing. We've got little holes here and there. So this is some kind of engineered design. While we have some little thing flying, you know, horizontal. And we got another one down here. It really has like this angel fish wing kind of, you know, feel to it. You know, so that's another craft. It's really just wild. Again, the more you look at these things, the more you see. Like even here, I see the tip of a triangle, a straight line, you know, point. So there's cloaking craft all over the place. All right, now we're back in Miami. This is looking to the east at night. And I just saw these lines, you know, again, to the naked eye, moving this way while another one's going perpendicular. I see like a triangle up here. So anyway, with enhancement, this got real interesting. Look at this. There's like a curve. Again, it's like a hammer, upside down hammer with where you'd hold it here and this thing's curved. All kinds of things happening, right? This does goes up to like a triangular effect, another ring-like shape, and the separate little craft object flying off that way, right? Lower left, look at this. This is the top of a roof in a neighborhood. Look at this thing. You know, we look to the right. I think I pulled over for this. Yeah, I pulled over for this one. And then look at this. You know, we see something's going on like a craft and another, I don't know what's developing. It's definitely something kind of coming in and out of cloaking state. Look at this, what we could like, looks like the front of maybe an overall craft. Like maybe there's like one big window maybe to observe things down here. Anyway, see what you see in that scene. All right, this is in a neighborhood. This is a tree line. This is in the distance past us, but not very far off. This is insanely low in the sky. And we have a straight line. So with enhancement, look at this thing. We have little sticks popping out. This is on angle. You know, of course, that's some kind of cloaking object. Down here at the lower right, these little weird things were separate from this. This is a sharp line. That's a sharp line. We look at enhancement. At first, I thought, wow, this is a craft because it's symmetrical. You know, it's a triangular shape with something off the back. It looks like that's a little vapor trail with little holes here and there. So I still believe those are craft. However, what's curious is between these two things could also be some type of cloaking craft in a different way, like a sky imprint. See what you think on that one. All right. Again, insanely low in the sky. This is the tree line, so the roof line is not too far below. These are really low, and look what they're doing. This has a full-on vapor trail behind it. So that's a little independent craft. There's another craft, another craft. Have fun looking at this. The more you look, the more you see. Straight lines. Look at these parallel lines and sticks. It's like an outrigger, like on a, look at another line. It's like some weird kind of ship, you know, and these are like almost like little outriggers. And we have holes. You know, the more you look, you'll see lots of holes. All right, tell me what this is, friends. Upper left is what I saw to the naked eye. Again, insanely low in the sky. This is the tree line. With actually, there's a curve here and the curve echoes above. So it's almost like it has a little force field around it. With enhancement, we start to see it's like a ball with a depression on it and a hole. And here we go again. So I think I caught something in and out of cloaking state. Again, I think it's purely intentional that they understand that I am looking at it and I get what I'm seeing more or less in a general way. And so they allow me to see it. And again, no negative vibes, if anything neutral. And just like, wow, that's cool. What is it? Okay, this is interesting, upper left. This is at a park. And I look across and I'm like, what the heck? They're not trying to hide this. So this is what I saw. And then I'm like, what are these little weird things? So, you know, took a picture. Different enhancement. We see a pipe across the top of this thing. We, you know, zoom in more. Look at these little nibby things, whatever's going on here on the inside of this thing. We come down. Actually, let me go back up to the upper right. This thing is like, looks like a separate object coming out of this hole. And then I zoom in along the, you know, to really catch what's going on down here at this edge. And look at, we see parts and pieces. They're engineered. These are, you know, look clearly crafted, you know, by intelligent, you know, design as all of this stuff. So again, this is an example where I would just love to see all of this without all the smoke and mirrors. What are we really looking at? Lower left hand corner called Sky Prizes. I highly recommend you go look at that show, especially any of my shows where it shows like one like. I've said it on other shows. I was told by a higher source that when I start this channel, don't worry about the numbers, don't even look at the numbers. And I see why, because from the very moment I started, I got shadow banned for probably obvious reasons that I'm pointing this stuff out. In the shows where I mention any of the Native American teachings or wisdoms, any of the shows where I show particularly like really mind-bending in a good way, mind-expanding shots like this one in the lower left-hand corner, you know, all the views were taken to like nothing and one like, which would have had more. So I'm not saying it from any kind of egotistical thing. I could actually care less. I mean, it's nice to know that this show is landing and reaching people out there. So, but I'm not going to be showing that with the numbers. So anyway, if you're here, consider yourself a part of a very special happening. Don't look at the numbers. Anyway, this lower left-hand corner This is one of the most unusual captures that I have with the photographs. I don't know quite what we're looking at other than we're dealing with a very high level or high dimensional like ET group that can generate this beautiful otherworldly cyan glow. And then we have the, the shape of the craft beyond, it's symmetrical, it's a curve with straight lines. And then I don't know what these two things are coming to the center of this. I don't know if this is another craft on a different dimension or something, kind of held in place by something. But it's just magical. This is one of those things that I just looked up and you just go, wow, I don't know what I'm looking at, but it feels good and, would love to know what it is. That I think more on that will come up later in the show. Now this is at the same time, I think by the same quote-unquote people, we'll just say, of the ET race, because this is another example where I think it's a very high dimensional beings coming in, because this is a warmer glow, and this is that, it's hard to describe when you see it. It just starts to happen in the sky and light up like a backlit of this most beautiful, wonderful cyan white glow you could ever imagine. And it just feels happy. And so I'm looking, I'm like, wow. And here I think there's like a warmer craft, hiding all in here. So I believe now, and especially after talking to some very wise people who are really tapped in, I think this is my quote-unquote star family showing up. And they might be Arcturian, they could be Pleiades, from there. But whatever the case, wherever they're from exactly, whoever they are very benevolent and wondrously kind, because that's how this all felt. All right. Now looking down here below, between C and D, we have some other stuff going on. So I zoom in, and that looks like an independent object or objects, happening together in a specific way. And with another one happening beyond with like a hole at the end, which again I think is shooting out some of this camouflage stuff. And the lower left is just, what I saw to the naked eye. And what caught my attention was, again, this otherworldly glow. And then, boom, we see so much more, right, when we zoom in and put more enhancement. Stainless Sky, I recommend you go check that out once again. That's a cover as a reference. So you can look at all the stuff I point out in detail on this. But I think we can agree that doesn't look like a natural cloud. A lot happening there with these streaks, straight lines, and this other thing beyond. But again, it just looks magical. It felt good. No bad vibes. Upper right hand corner, we have this, like that doing that. We look here, look at this. What's going on? We got this is pointed, and this too. So it looks like, craft riding along side by side, and then something flying maybe off of it that was docked on top. Lower left, this just came up out of nowhere. Look at this. I mean, literally, it's just like a few streets away and it just erupts. What looked weird about this to the naked eye was it almost looks like a head and a long neck and shoulders. Like, do these ET races have the capability of forming whatever they want for us? Like to the right, it does look like maybe it's some kind of being, to me. Or it's just some kind of craft. See what you think about that. This reminds me, though, of something like, is it a being showing itself? Like in this show called Sky Cameo, in the previous show I covered a different way where something might be presenting itself. But it could also just be craft kind of looking like that, and it could be a case of pareidolia. See what you think. Okay, now we're going to go back to that very special, exceptional glow thing here, like in the lower left-hand corner is from the cover slide. Now actually I'm pointing down here to, is it a ring or a donut? Because that definitely looks like a donut shape down here. There's, see, again, so much going on in any one of these photos. But let's just start back to the naked eye. I saw this happening. And again, it was just such an otherworldly, beautiful, pure glow coming out of this thing. I didn't really catch everything going on until I go into the enhancement. So I looked to the upper right, and then I started to see that this is curved and this is symmetrical. So we go down here and I drew the line. I think that is the overall shape of the craft. And this is maybe a power generator or something at the center of it. Amazing, amazing, amazing. It felt amazing. And down here, going in black and white mode, sometimes I take all color out so our brain, to eye connection sees things in a different way. And here we go. That's a pure donut form or toroidal form. And then we got other weird stuff happening here, right? So it's almost like this is here and maybe it's tow cabling something. I don't know. All right, Sky Eye Golden. Take a look at that too. That particular show to the right, that's to the naked eye. We have this weird walnut form, but with structure in it, even a hole depression, and then we have like straight lines zigzagging all over different directions. That caught my attention. So with enhancement, bam, that thing popped out big time. We got like a hole in there. Then the lower left to the naked eye just saw like different colors, again the typical things moving in different directions, something that looked like it had a point to it. So we look over here and sure enough, it's more of that otherworldly cyan glow happening behind there with all kinds of other things happening. Look at all the different colors. All right, here's to the upper left-hand corner is that, cover I showed you just to the naked eye. How could I not look at this and say something must be going on here? I mean, even we have a stick with like a bulbous end to it while we have this going on, which is totally different than all of this. So we get a few more, glances at what's going on with this thing. What do you think is happening? I think this is an overall craft, and this even like it has like a depression down, so maybe there's other craft that can dock on top of it or whatever. See what you think. Lower left, words, wisdom, and spirit of the day page has messages from the acorn and the tea plant leaves. So these were both on the property where I used to be. So the tea leaf itself has many purposes, many functions and uses. It's really beautiful. And this was lying nearby from a oak tree, so I just paired the colors and the textures. Just thought it was really beautiful. If you want to know the messages, head over to the show where this is at. If you need to know where it is, send me an email. Actually, on any of these, if you're like, oh, I really wanted to know more, but I don't want to go through 198 shows to find it, can you please point me in the right direction? Let me know, and I might remember offhand more quickly, where some of these things came from. And I can shoot an email back to you. All right, lower right-hand corner. This just looked weird, all of this texture. I could get, to the naked eye, kind of see that there was different colors happening. So with enhancement, we see a little bit more. So down here, D is supposed to be sunset, but I believe we have cloaking craft happening in here and doing their own illumination because I see different lines of things happening in here. And then how does it then just suddenly turn like a raspberry glow? So I believe we have other craft kind of, again, self-illuminating or projecting out some of these colors. This is definitely not natural clouds, and there seems to be like a hole forming. So again, I think this just is one way of something that is cloaking because we've got a line, another parallel line, and a rounded form. This is, and down here too is symmetrical. So that's a craft. It's a huge craft. I'm fascinated by all the numbers, numerous ways these things cloak. So here, this looks like staccato, choppy cloud effect. This is like doing its own thing. The other ones are like a light body, kind of camouflaging behind light. It's just incredible. This is interesting. So what do you think is happening here? The left-hand side, this is toward the evening, 7:35, so sundown already happened. We're looking south-southwest. I already got it down here at A on the upper left that this has got to be a cloak and craft, but what I also saw was like this hole. So I'm like, are we looking at a hole, like this thing shot out of a portal, or it punched through like this hazy cloud cover? Or is this a backlit object and it's a solid? Well, we go to the right, and this is the moon over here, by the way, supposedly. So we go over here, and then I start to see, okay, this is a cloaking object, so is this. I think this is a hole, but then I kind of see an edge coming out over like the glow of the quote-unquote moon. So I'm a little not sure about this one. See what you see. No matter what, it's kind of beautiful compositionally. All right, upper left, see straight lines at the bottom of whatever this is, so we know that's craft, and the enhancements help us out with that. See, this is a different color signatures than this, so we clearly see it as a craft. And we look down here, look at these are two legs, two pipes that are parallel. That is absolutely, no question, a craft. And actually, the more I look at it, we got the plasma or whatever cloaking material clinging to it, but it has a little break. Like, are we looking at a little being? Is that a little dude there with the head and the shoulders and something flying this thing? Or is that just like a little bit of pareidolia? Either way, it's kind of fascinating to think we might be even be able to see this to that level. Or this just happens to be like a machine part, on top of the craft. But this is definitely a craft. It looks like it would be like a raft. It's very flat, and then the front is boxy, and it has something in front, again, parallel little stick-like elements. Very fascinating. Lower left-hand corner, this was just bizarre. This little thing up here erupting out of another cloud base, that's nothing that would ever happen in my decades of knowing this whole area. That's just not a cloud formation, typical natural cloud formation. And then we have stuff moving in a different direction. We have all different colors and textures happening, so we're dealing with cloak and craft all over the place here. All right, upper left just looked weird here. This whole little sequence that I'm going to talk to you about gets real exciting. Hold on one moment, though. Okay, I'm back. This one I highly recommend you go check out. The lower right-hand corner is on the feature of the title page, so you'll be able to find it. But let's look here. Upper left, I first was just looking at all of this up in the sky going, what the heck? You know, I start to see a pointed ellipse or kind of walnut shape up here at C. But I almost took, and this weird thing shooting up at D, but I totally almost missed of what was happening way down here at 8.1. Look at this little thing. I saw this standalone thing, very low. These are trees. Yes, this is off in the distance, but this is telling me this is very low over the roof lines of the houses, okay, this thing. So when we zoom in, this is this. And then we zoom in more, and I see, what the heck is going on with that thing? And I zoom in even more, and this is so perplexing. Maybe you can help out with this. Let me know what you think. Not only does it look like a sky gummy bear, like the head and the arms and the legs, but we start to see 3 holes cluster here, 2 holes here. It does look like a little figure, but are we looking at like a portal and this stuff is emerging out or just peeking out at us? Again, that sky earlier show I have called Sky Cameo, there's a similar effect where it almost looks like a portal with a being peeking out. Is that what we're seeing? Or this is just an object and these are other objects passing in front of it? Hard to say. It's very perplexing, especially when you look at the scale of this thing. It's a huge gummy bear floating over the town, or over the little neighborhood. Anyway, we'll continue. We got weird textures happening in up here too. So to me, it's like there's a big mothership or cluster of mothership activity and they just drop this little thing down. But why? I don't know what's going on. Okay. Anyway, we'll move along. I think that's all I cover there. So do go look at that show because there's a lot of interesting stuff happening with that. Here, you know, I look at the sky at first and I'm like, oh, what are these weird clouds? But when you look at the overall what's going on and with enhancement, you can see it. This has symmetry to it. That's a huge craft with something happening on the back of it. You know, I would say this is the stern and that's the bow. And then we have other like a ring-like thing, a triangle standalone, just a lot of weird stuff happening there. Lower left-hand corner, again, very odd that we have something happening here, something very different happening over here. And I'll just go straight to here, the most enhanced and zoomed in. This is a craft. Again, this would be the front tip and the back end and the wings. And then this is another like fleet of something or one overall craft camouflaging in a different way. And then these are also craft, perfect, you know, lines. So we got a lot of different things happening all in the same scene. This is really weird, looking off to the east at sunset. You know, it shouldn't be all this glow because that should only be happening toward the west, but that's beside the point. But this started looking weird. I started seeing what looked like big wings. I mean, what came to mind was like a huge thunderbird, and I don't know why that word came up, but it did. And again, it kind of looks like wings. So we keep moving along. But I think this is just a cluster of a lot of different crafts. So this is probably one craft in a triangular shape, and maybe this is all one connected or something. Looks like there's a hole right there. I mean, just really weird stuff. You know, and these might be independent, separate craft. And then we're just zooming in on this piece here so that you can see there's like a flat pipe with 2 little openings or something. And, you know, again, the more you look, the more you find with this stuff. All right, now we're jumping back over to Australia, again with kind submissions of photos by Yowie Grrrowlz. And this is looking across a lake or a pond, but look at, we see this whole thing, whatever's going on the distance, but then these are very different animals, so to speak, than everything else going on. So we go down, you know, here, and of course I start locking into 8.1 because I already start to see a ring or a hole. This, you know, they're going off on the same kind of, more or less, same trajectories, springing up out of somewhere. And, you know, again, here's this, we're going to zoom in. We have, wait, which one? Yeah, we're zooming in on A. So we have a hole here in this face of it, a hole over here, and then we have a triangle here. And we have a perfect curve. So again, is this one overall craft or multiples that are like racked up together to form all one shape? I don't know. But this is going up here while this is coming across and doing something different. So again, that's your telltale sign. Something's happening. This gets real exciting. This is a cover. I invite you to go, you know, look at this show in and of itself. But this happens to be an airfield. So we're seeing the front of a plane on the ground. This thing, I was told, just erupted out of nowhere, like I've told you can happen. Look at this overall assembly. Back here where I have the question marks, that is a pure form with a pure triangle at the end of it. Then we have a pointed ellipse sticking out of here. It looks like there's a craft just perched. We have a clear edge here. Looks like a craft perched on the top of a cloaking craft. That's a great show because I do go into detail, and I really do a lot of progressions on it to really get at different machine parts in that show. All right, more from Australia, looking across at different things, and with different enhancements. I'll just zoom, fast forward here. Look at this. What is this thing sticking out? This overall shape is a craft. We got lines that are parallel. We got a weird texture happening up here on this piece, and the end of a pipe. I mean, seriously, this thing like pushes out the cloaking material. We got it. I mean, that's the end of a pipe. All right, then we got this also view somewhere else in Australia, and we just start to see the bottoms of these things are all straight lines, and then here I start to see that's looking very triangular. Then I'm like, here's like a triangle here, so I'm like, wow, I bet you we're dealing with a whole ocean of cloaking craft. And as we zoom in on some of these straight lines, if you follow my cursor, we start to see objects here, that are just floating along, trying to blend in, right? So we go to the upper right, and those don't blend in when we start to do our little enhancements. See, they're a different animal, they're a different material because they're presenting in a different color range. And then we start to see sticks and the usual holes, and then you start looking more and more, and you are seeing craft. These are parallel lines, engineered elements, and I suspect all of these are. I think we're just seeing an entire fleet floating across right before our eyes, right? Come down to the lower one, I put the brightness on a lot just to see if I could get at what's solid in here, and this is all solid structure with parallel lines, so we got craft. All right, this gets fun. This is called Sky Candy Floss, show number 175, and photo credits in here are to Sugar Seas YouTube channel. I highly recommend you go check it out. Fascinating stuff going on over there, and I'll be referencing it up again later in the show. But Sugar Seas actually found my channel and liked what I was doing with identifying these cloaking craft, and then she went back in and looked up some of her video footage, and I can't remember if I screenshot this or she asked me if I would take a look, I forget. Either way, and looking at her footage with big cloud systems and stuff, sure enough, we caught cloaking craft in there. So she sent this thing, she said it was really weird, and I've seen these too. I call them like tower or puddle clouds because they like puddle out at the top. They erupt out of nowhere. These are not clouds I grew up with, and she's seeing them too. And it's got symmetry. It's got these little wings and a curve and a rim. We even start to see some like vertical elements. So what I'm going to say is there's one big like mothership happening here. This thing at the top with, if you look to the upper right, with enhancement, we see that's going straight across. That's a companion craft, what I call it. This one's, parallel with this one, floating in the front. So those are, I think, like scout ships, what do you want to call it, companion craft of some kind that travel around with these things. Back in the distance, this looks like a big like airplane, like huge, like looking at it from above with the two wings going out in the tail and the front. Lots of weird stuff happening all over. So again, I put in extreme enhancement just to pull out the key elements. These two are craft. There's craft in here, no question. This one's like flanking this thing too. We got a straight stick line. These are machine parts, pure and simple. Here again, just kind of looking at different views, and we see little things poking out of here that again look like pipe ends, and we have sharp angles and sharp lines. In that show, I go into way more detail, so I invite you to look there too. Upper left, this was just weird light. It felt very strange, and I zoom in, and sure enough, we see like a straight line to a triangle, different light source, independent light source shining. This is like looks like a sphere with a hole in it. Very interesting stuff. This is, sorry, I'm moving all over the place a little bit. This is still a part of this show, and that's this, that's this object here at F, where I'm pointing to. Down here it's called C. I just relabeled them a bit. Anyway, this is a craft or object floating along, but look at this. We have a weird flash of light. Let me go back up here, big flash of light happening. So I'm even zooming in on that. We've got a pure ring. So to me, that flash of light is coming from an artificial light source. It's not lightning. That's a pure shape with a straight line in there. All right, then down here, this is a different scene with backlighting with supposed lightning and clouds, but you see it's not true lightning. It's coming up out of this thing, which is a pure curve with like, it looks like a gunner, like the tip of a gun or something, or weaponry. So something, this might be being created beyond, and it's backlighting this machine part in the front, but in no case is that natural lightning. And that's something to look out for too in some of these skies where you think it's weird, it doesn't feel like real lightning. That's because it's not. And here's the end of this thing with a little more brightness applied, and there's a hole. So I'm not sure what shoots out of there, but you know, maybe it's more of this stuff. All right, now I'm referencing Sugar Seas again, this time in a different show. This is the cover of 177 called Sky Mysteries. In this case, I highly recommend you go see this show on my channel, plus the source information on YouTube channel Sugar Seas for the source material as well. Sugar Seas was looking around on the internet and found video footage of in front of a cave in Greece, and I think it's called Hades Cave, and looked to her channel too to see where the source video even came from. I can't remember if it was a guy or who caught the footage. She's looking around and she sees something flying around. To most of us, we would just glance and say, oh, it must be a butterfly or something. She zooms in further, and it's a fairy. And I say that with 100% certainty because then I took what she still froze, which I'm going to show in a second, and I zoomed in and did my technique like I do with the craft, and here I got the fairy. I'm going to go a little in reverse order to show you like the final result, and then we'll go back to the what she caught and how we got here. But if you follow my cursor, this is the head. You know, we're looking at the side of a face. This is a nose and a mouth and a chin. This is the top of the head with like a little bun, hair bun in the back. This is like a little fairy crown with like the two little like antennae or flora hanging off of it. And that would be, we're looking at the side of her and her back, and she has her arm extended out there, and you'll see coming up there's also legs, feet, and you can see the dress and everything. So this is a fairy being. So here we go. Upper left, Sugar Seas was like freezing the moments that this thing was flying around. I don't want to say thing, this little humanoid fairy. And so at first it was on the side, but you can see like the knee and the leg and the foot and another leg and a foot, and then, you know, an arm and her looking down. So what I did was I just rotated this 90 degrees to get this positioning. So you can see where I zoomed in here. From when you look to the right, that's, you know, this kind of turned on the side. So you see this is the back, that would be like her butt and the back of her legs hanging down. A little bit of the dress, like a little, skirt or whatever. And then this is her back, her shoulder blades, her little arm coming across, and she's looking that way. So it's a fairy, especially when they get to this level, and you see even her nose and her chin. So anyway, this is just a sequence of progression. I took what Sugar Seas caught. She still framed it from another video. I took her photo and then did my own progression, zoomed in. This is another view. And, you know, I kind of applied my enhancements to it. Down here is the original that she captured, still captured from the video. So again, you see the wings, you see the head, you see legs, but somebody might say, oh, that could be a wasp or whatever. Well, the more we zoom in, especially in the upper right, you see a face, you see two eyes and a nose, and you start to see the chest and the torso and legs. And then again, once we get to this level, you see that's a being, undeniably. And then when we zoom in here, okay, even more undeniable. Again, she's looking that way. That's her face. We're looking at the profile of a person. And then the top of the head with some type of little crown and the flora, you know, and then the bun. And so, you know, this is with more enhancement just to pull out the different elements. And then down here, to me, this is still the face. I know it's a little hard to see. I was trying to get at these little flora things, you know, these little antennae coming off of this like crown. And then I just kind of blew it out and played with it. To me, this becomes like a totally energetic being and just shows kind of like the energetic signature coming off of this little being. All right, upper left-hand corner. I saw a burst of some kind of light that was different than everything else, and we really see it here. So that's a craft. We move over here. It's like an arrowhead, perfect symmetry. And I think we're just seeing the tip of a bigger thing. So if you follow my cursor, this is the overall symmetry. So it's like one big arrow. And I think we have maybe little objects piggybacking on this thing, whatever it is. And I think this is an object as well. And I don't know, you know, where this sprang out of, but I think this is the back end of an overall craft. Okay, oops, sorry. Lower left-hand corner and lower right are just capturing my YouTube shorts, you know, just wherever it freeze frames to show you the shorts. And I started doing these in the last year because I wasn't able to do my longer sky shows with the slides. And so a lot of cool stuff is happening in all of the YouTube shorts that I have as well. There I also incorporate things from nature mixed in with the sky observations. There are a lot of cool sky observations happening there too. So like I said, if I can get to it, I'll do a part 5 where I grab highlights from all of the shorts, but there's a ton of them there too. All right, this is what I saw just looking weird. I had a nice surprise with enhancement, and I see more than I thought I'd see. So I didn't even catch this to the naked eye. I was more like looking at patterns and saying, oh, what am I going to find? Look at this, 8.1, ready? We have a different color, a warm glow, but then a cool, color hues over here, and you see clear holes. We're going to zoom in on this. Look at this. If you squint your eyes, if it's at a too large of a, if you're looking at this on a laptop, squint your eyes, you'll see more. If you have it on a small handheld device, you'll probably see it already. These are perfect holes, the end of like pipes coming off of whatever this is. So we got machine parts. It's craft. And look at the size and the scale of this thing. You know, these are the tops of trees. This is very low. The roof of this house is over like here. All right, lower left-hand corner, Sky Mysteries. This was an alternate cover slide. I wanted to go with the fairy because that was just truly amazing, beyond amazing. This was just what I was toying with if I should put it on instead of the fairy. And this was also equally like anomalous to see. This was just some strange cloud system, cloud in quotes. You know, we know it's cloaking craft. But what the heck is this? How and what is that there for? It's like this charcoal gray way of cloaking something. Really, really bizarre. But I invite you to check out that show because I do go more into detail of what the heck is that. All right. More, I'm looking up here and I just see a point, and clear as day. That's not a cloud doing that. And it's very different than this. So, and this isn't normal, just rising up vertical out of nowhere. More stuff suspected happening here. So we look to the right and look at this. 8.1, I'm just going to focus on that, and I invite you to look at the sticks and all the other machine parts popping up all over the place. Let's just focus on A1 now for now. We'll jump over here to A2 to the lower left, and bam, look at that. That's rigid craft, absolutely, with holes. A3, looking at it a slightly different way, zooming in more. Look at this, sharp line, boom, 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 we got geometry, and that's not cloud. And we got the end of a pipe, All right, very chaotic sky coming out into a hospital parking lot. This is the parking lot. This is low trees. This is so low, I couldn't believe it. And here I see something with like a stick-like thing, and then this thing. I'm like, are you kidding? They are not even trying to hide this. Look at this over here. I saw this like almost to the naked eye, not as exaggerated with the different, color signatures. But this was enough. It was as good as seeing this. I could make that out. I mean, it's like an old-fashioned airplane, and the material's clinging to it, and we've got like little pipe things coming off of it, and it's docked to the top of something bigger. I mean, it's like, am I really seeing this? And yes, I am. So, like I said, I'm not catching and doing videos or stills of blinking lights in the sky for whatever reason. That's not how they want to present themselves to me. For me, I get the cloaking craft versions. But some are just so laughable. It's like, that's what I'm saying, like sloppy cloaking, but it's not. It's just like kind of a tongue-in-cheek cloaking. They're like, haha, you see us, we're going to make it obvious. But yet technically, we're still cloaked because we got the plasma over us. You're not seeing us peer straight out, right? So anyway, this is just hysterical. Like, that's no cloud formation that you could ever call natural clouds. All right, and yet the scale is so jumbo that it's not a drone. It's not anything that we know, right? All right, lower left-hand corner, just weird color signatures, and again, like the crisscross movement of things coming across perpendicular or cross-like, which don't happen with natural clouds, led me to take the photo, and I come over here to lower right. We see a lot of weird stuff going on. I'm not going to go too much into this. E.1 is like the one dead giveaway that we're dealing with craft, because it's a pipe-like thing coming to a point, and then these kind of hook off off the back and kind of parallel to each other. Curved but parallel. We've got other weird stuff happening in here. All right, Sky Flight number 180. I catch another one of these things that was similar to one of the earlier shows I saw you. This again was flying around near the quote-unquote sun. It happened so quickly, I can't even believe I caught it in one of my frames. It's cutting across near the sun. We got shadow, and it's straight as straight can be. It's nothing on my lens. It's no bug. We're dealing with a cloaking craft. And this proves it to me because this was a similar scale and behaved the same way near the sun that I had the other capture, by luck. Okay, and this particular show too, I just want to mention, photos came in from Tennessee, from another kind viewer of the channel, EK out of Tennessee. I think I have just another a cover slide coming up of EK's, one of EK's shots, but I go into detail on that particular show, so I'll mention that again as we get to it. All right, lower right-hand corner, I'm not going to belabor this. It was just the most wild, vibrant color rainbows probably I've ever seen. And when I put it into contrast, it really shows up clear. So it's just otherworldly and beautiful. And here we're just seeing a little more of that little thing. I think I call it like rice. It looks like almost like, what is it, balmati or basmati rice. And then this was just another view of it as it was flying off. And I zoom in and we see straight line. It's a technical object. It's nothing natural. It's definitely no insect or bird. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Tennessee. So talking Tennessee skies. Again, thanks to EK if you're watching this. Another kind viewer sent this in. As I mentioned, so EK noticed this weird shape happening. These are supposedly stars, and I think the effect of EK's camera didn't, really made them pop out. But so I thought, okay, let's look at A and B, see what we're dealing with. Well, right away, I'm going to just come down to the lower left. We have this, again, pure lines, straight edges, parallel lines with like a U shape, and like little bars. So it's like a little like a tuning fork or something. And then we have these parallel lines, some holes in here. This could be a separate craft, assembly onto this whole thing. This too maybe is docking into something else. I don't know, but I know that's no natural cloud. And then we go down to the lower right with more enhancement and in contrast. Yeah, we're looking at intelligent design and machine parts. Okay, this is more happening in Tennessee at the upper left and right. The only thing I'll mention here, because there's a lot going on in those skies in Tennessee, it's just the obvious one is here, the lower, left-hand corner. So whatever is happening here, we've got some really cool, wild, spherical ball that's cyan blue. That's not lens flare or anything. That's an otherworldly glow coming off the backside of this artificial sun, I'm going to say, is in the front. And then look at this, like a ring of whatever color signature's coming off of that. And then we have this. So we have like a cut, like incised line making the form of the craft. So anyway, I'm going to invite you to look at that show. It's very fascinating. Then lower left, we're back in Miami. This is insanely low over the trees. This is the only thing floating around that looks like that. And with enhancement, we can definitely see, there's a curve and another echoed curve. This is looks like two different objects to me. We look to the right and I see, it looks like two hardened separate craft maybe flying along tandem, forming in one overall shape. Upper left, there's more from the Tennessee show, and I go into detail of what could be happening in here. So again, I'm going to refer you to that show for time's sake. And thanks again to EK. On the upper right-hand corner, this I just truncated off, but there's a bigger cloud system happening here. But looking to the right, how do you have something that comes down like this and dog legs like this so perfectly? And, there's a hardened edge enough to show you we got a pure form doing that. So that's not natural. And it's just kind of coming out of the cloud. Look at the two different color signatures. So this is a different animal per se than whatever's happening up here. Plus D.1, I forgot to mention that down here. There's like cloaking material wafting or wafting over whatever this straight bar is. Okay, lower left, this is was a huge assembly of whatever this is. I think I remember in the show, this reminded me of one of those shoebill birds. Like they got a really big beak, wide beak at the top. They look really prehistoric. They're really cool. But the lower right-hand corner, look, we start to see a sharp line. Again, I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but with this sharp edge and curving, I know it's cloaking craft or multiple cloaking craft. Then upper left, look at this. People will say, oh, there's just chemtrails. Well, no. Contrails. People will try to deny chemtrails, which now it's going to be harder and harder to deny. But again, just like cloaking craft or real ET craft and Bigfoot, the three-letter agencies will, tell everybody that they're crazy for calling them chemtrails. Well, now we know better. I think most people are on board with it now. But even if this were just an innocent condensation trail, there's no way it would be at this scale and diving down, down toward the ground. So that rules out that neat little try to, call it a contrail excuse. No, it's not a condensation trail. This is either a chemical fill trail or, like I call, a camouflage trail or a red herring trail. maybe, you know, look over here while they're trying to hide whatever massive thing is back cloaking here. They meaning, you know, those opposing the good or neutral forces. So look at this. You know, that's more than just a condensation trail. And we got weird telltale signs that other things are masked behind this haze. And this is like an object in and of its own right, sitting here on angle. All right, lower left hand, this just looked weird. We have like a shovel head effect. Looks like the head of a shovel. And then we have a force field or something around it. And we have these parallel lines, this choppy staccato cloud effect, as I call it. We see sharp edges, the telltale signs once again, hard edges, shadows to them, holes, and just none of this fits to be natural cloud, and it's all insanely low in the sky. Lower right-hand corner, similar principle in that everything's insanely low to the sky, in the sky. And we got multiple like patterns and swirls and things. I mean, that doesn't look like normal cloud, especially when you look at the right-hand side here. Look at this. Those aren't natural clouds. It's beautiful. Oh, and I think we're seeing like the rim or the edge of a rim of a big craft poking out with holes and interesting patterning. So I'm just seeing that now. So again, it's phenomenal how some of these craft cloak. And you've got to really look at scale to things. Am I just seeing the edge of something massive, or is that the craft itself, that kind of thing? Okay, upper left, I see something that looks like, I can't think of what the shape, like, oh, like a letter A on its side, actually. See, if you look here, it looks like the letter A on its side. But there's cloaking craft going on in here. And I think this might be an overall craft, or it's two separate things. But we have a hole here. We have, again, pipe work, and looks, you know, very rigid design. So lower left-hand corner, we're looking in here at A, and then we have, you know, like a void, but we have sharp lines. So with a little more, you know, enhancement and stuff, I zoom in, I'm like, is it a pentagon, like a pentagonal shape happening over here? If so, which it looks like, because there's sharp lines, and if I can come in and draw over those sharp lines, we're dealing with intelligent design. Okay, upper left, this just looked weird. These were all parallel, and it was the only thing like that in the sky, and very low. And with enhancement, we start to see there's like a hole to this thing. And so again, cloaking craft or multiples. And down here, this is the only thing floating over, you know, another part of town, really low. I thought, oh, let me try to catch it. I couldn't even catch the whole thing with my one view on the camera. I was driving, so I couldn't take a panorama. But again, we see evidence of structure to this, and like method to the madness. And it's a very flat, like elliptical pointed ellipse. But it has, look at this patterning, you know, that's intelligent design there too. All right, this was pretty wild. Looking to the south, this was low, it just erupted out of nowhere. It was like self-illuminating pink, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. But the more that I put enhancement, I'm like, this is like a being. If we, you know, go over more to the right and come down, things start to morph. But let me come back up, I guess here. So here, this looks like the head, the shoulder and arm, a torso, a leg, another arm maybe holding like a shield up here, and this starts to look like an angel's wing. The more I looked, it looked like a massive figure. It felt kind of weird too. It didn't feel like so sunny and rosy, but it didn't feel intimidating or threatening either. So I don't know, was this just some being forming, or it's multiple craft made to look like a being? The more I looked here though, if you follow my cursor over here, this was starting to look like a face with two eyes and, you know, nose and mouth. And it was just starting to get really trippy. So I did try to draw over it. It looked like, yeah, a head with like a halo off to the side. So this is kind of what it just very roughly, you know, outlined what I was seeing for this to be like a being. So was it a massive being, or is it just another case of cloaking craft multiples, you know, racking up to kind of form an overall shape? Who knows? All right, this was at night. And again, I love some of these night shots are really fascinating. Even if they're a little grainy, it's fine. You can still pick up a lot. So don't let, you know, don't think you only can take some of these cloaking craft shots during the day. Look at this thing. I was really wowed when I did the enhancement. So we have this very skinny but yet rigid craft going off up at sea. Look at the movement of all of this, all in different directions. There's no way any wind patterning, and there wasn't on this day, could create all of that. So we got independent craft doing their own thing. Lots of different parts and pieces, I think, is what's going on here. Fascinating. All right, lower left, this thing was like on its own, floating over there, didn't look normal. And the more you zoom in on this, you start to see different color signatures. So there's a craft sitting on top of whatever this thing is. And I invite you to find that show. The date is down here somewhere. I can get you more information if you want to find out exactly which show that's in. It might be from January. Looks like, if I have it correct, looks like January 10th, 2023. All right, lower right. Doesn't look like much, this is a lot of particulate, a lot of foggy, hazy stuff. Like if you don't really pay attention, you would just look in this direction and go, oh, what? It's just kind of like a overcast or a hazy sky. Well, I saw a little bright reflectance or something happening there, and I started to make out a straight line. So sure enough, look at this thing. That's a craft. And it's got a little bit of reflectance and some holes on the sides. And then this is another one happening up here. All right, upper left, weird shape. That's a normal cloud with a weird thing kind of flying off the top. So we zoom in, upper right, we see there's a separate, looks like a little craft lifting up off the deck of this bigger craft. And there's like a straight stick thing element. This is a pure curve. So I think we're looking at the front of a craft here, the rounded portion. And then this is the top deck of it, and that's the back. And now I zoom in just on this area just to try to see what's going on. It was a little hard to do so. But this is this curve, looking at us. And so this is, imagine it the top deck of a boat, like a motorboat. And this thing is symmetrical, It's got little legs and it's zooming up that way. Very interesting. Lower left, I don't want to really belabor this. This is just with my camera, so it's all fuzzy. But I just wanted to show, this is looking west, that after sunset, that this was the proximity. It was really cool that Jupiter and Venus were like so close to each other back then. I think it was February 2023. All right. This is looking out over a parking lot, probably at a grocery store or something. And again, just not normal to see like a pointed ellipse. It looks like we got two holes here. I zoom in, play with the, like I said, the contrast, color saturation, all that. We start to see the end of a pipe there. That's a hole facing us. And look at all the different like color signatures, and you can just see it. It looks like a craft's coming in and out of state. These are 2 points, it's an ellipse. I mean pointed elliptical form. Down here, we're going to see that coming up, Sky Arc, show number 184. And we have like a separate little thing floating in, zooming in with a vapor trail or shooting out vapor from this hole. And then this thing was just weird. It started forming in front of me with an arc and a hole back here with a separate triangle. Down here to the lower right, I got this out of order a little bit. This is the original photo that I saw, and then I went over here to the upper left and then over here. But even, without doing any enhancements, you can just see that's not a normal cloud looking over a parking lot. Upper left, that just looks strange. I think that speaks for itself. Upper right, look at this. With enhancement, we have a pure curve and a rim, almost like the bottom of a teacup. And like, what's all this stuff? It's just wild. This looks like maybe a separate craft about to zoom off this way. The lower left shows the context of all of this, of what I was just looking at zoomed in. That's happening down here. There's something massive happening up here with a symmetrical shape cut out over here. We look at this lower left scene to the right with enhancement, extreme enhancement. And we see, yes, this is some kind of object up here where it could be a hole or an object backlit. Then we see in this mess, which I suspected a craft is in there, this is the heart core of it, or maybe the power source of it is right in there. And then below, we start to see other weird color signatures. So I invite you to look at this more in your own time. Upper left, this just was a bright spot, looked very odd. And then we see when we zoom in, we got structure in here. We probably have a triangle with a hole, and that's an independent, cloaking craft of some type. Really strange looking. Lower left, just again, weird to have these lines. To the right, look what we pick up with enhancement. That's a hole, maybe 2 holes, a pipe-like thing. I don't know what this is, but have fun. Let me know if you have any ideas of what the heck's going on with this or any of the things I show you. And just as a little reminder, if you see something pretty fascinating, and I cover it one way because it's just my perception, there could be many different ways of looking at some of this stuff. But if you have something you want to comment on, feel free to put it in the comment section below. Hopefully it will post. If it doesn't post, it's not me. As long as it's in good spirit or neutral spirit and not negative, nothing gets chopped out by me. So that being said, if it gets censored the heck out of by the people at YouTube, then feel free to send me an email if you want to make a comment, and then also just say, yeah, I can share it with people what you saw, or just leave it private, however you wish. All right. This is upper left-hand corner original. This just looked weird. So this thing is covering the moon and exactly right over where the quote-unquote moon is. Lower left, zooming in more. This thing, whatever it is getting backlit now. And we have, sharp straight edges. And we got something weird happening off what I'll call the back of this thing. And we zoom in. Oh, and I see also like pure circular forms and stuff. So I know that's craft. Plus, that doesn't look like a normal cloud. And then we zoom in even more in what I'm calling the back of this thing. And this is supposed to be the glow of the quote-unquote moon. And we just see like curved lines and symmetry once again. This is like a stick, and this is going a different direction. That looks like another little object. So again, we got one bigger craft with little travelers or companions alongside this thing. Upper right-hand corner, I'm not going to make it too long, but this just felt weird overall, especially what's happening below and above. And we look to the right, and we got a pure ring. So something is like hiding here on the periphery, on the perimeter. And then we have a whole different glow, something self-illuminating down here. This is looking south after sunset. This is low. There's no way that's any effect of the sun. So this is a self-illuminating object, cloaked, and this is something else happening above. Okay, this I already covered, the lower right-hand corner. This is just what I saw at the upper left, and then it started morphing, and then turned into this. But look at, we have a perfect hole here, and you come down here, you see it. And there's one up here too, but you can only see, I'm sorry, here, but you see it more with the enhancement. But look at this rim, it's some kind of hole. So is it shooting something out, or it blows out the camouflage? I don't know. Back here are a couple of holes that are, this is cloaking, coming in and out of state. So it's not going to show you the pure rigid form. It's cloaking, ghost cloaking in a way where I can detect it. But again, it's not going to come and take all of this off and say, here we are, and show me a hardened craft. Again, this is a slow drip process of disclosure. And I believe that the ET forces that are doing this are just showing you enough, in this case me, to be able to point out to it, to be able to do a show like this, and pure curve, hardened curve. Show me enough, give me a taste, but they're not saying, okay, now you get to see us without all the cloaking. But who knows? We'll see when that might happen. Okay, this one's real fun, because to the left, I'm just like, okay, I know something's up there, but I didn't know quite what. So with enhancement, we start to see something. And then over here, look at this upper right-hand corner. This is a freaking craft. We've got, triangular shape. We got two arms holding like these pontoons or something, Maybe it's a couple craft. This also could be multiple craft, but they're like all connected with these arms. Crazy. Or like hallways or whatever, corridors, if it's a floating like space station. If the more you look, you'll also see holes and other pipes and all that, the usual. Okay, now over here gets interesting, because we could just look at this and be done and be like, wow, okay, that's cloak craft. And there's one down here, by the way. But over here at B.2, look at this. We start to see all these holes all over the place. I zoom in, we got sticks, we got weird holes. Like, what the heck is that? That's not cloud. Up here gets interesting. I watched this morph and change, and it's like we have it looks like an asterisk on a keyboard, here, floating up like it shot up out of this thing. What's going on? I don't know, but these little things, this is not natural clouds. All right, I'm just going to gloss over this because this could be a whole show. It is a whole show in itself. Go look at Big Sky Foot number 185 for more, okay? What this is taking stills of footage from a YouTube channel. I will give the name. I'm not supporting views or not, supporting or not supporting views. I am looking, it seems like most of the accounts that are read on that show, because this is Steve at the Facts by howtohunt.com, and he sits there and reads accounts from people who send in their stories about Bigfoot and other kind of strange anomalies now and then. And they seem pretty credible. I think maybe only a handful here and there might not be, true accounts. Most of them are, from what I can tell. Anyway, he reads them out in Nature up in Canada. And in this particular episode that I'm taking stills from, he was saying things were getting thrown at him from the tree line. And, that part I believe that it was like Sasquatch. However, when you take stills of what he was saying, like things were coming out of the tree line, I do what I do. I zoom in, and where you have Bigfoot, you might also have some cloaking or some, ET activity. So anyway, I thought, let me zoom in on what he thought was a stick or object, and the more I zoom in, it's some kind of weird, it looks like ET craft, or kind of what I would say like an ET sensor, like something sent out, maybe like a monitoring craft or object. Anyway, I'm circling that because that's the thing that was supposedly thrown, and we get to it in a few slides later of what that actually is. Then at the same time, I see these misty figures in the background, and I zoom in and do my thing that I normally do, and I start to see that these are Sasquatch, or he calls them Sabe, are interdimensional. I do know that. And they have the capability of kind of like appearing and disappearing. So my camera, I believe, caught them in the process of when they're in the full cloak state, because we have eyes, we have the conical head, and we have like the legs and the feet are just standing there. So I think, this is one of the Sasquatch just standing there. It kind of looks like it could also be walking. I'm not sure what the lighter part is, but I just traced over where it just looks like the Sasquatch is standing there. Anyway, I did send this in to Steve at the channel. I don't think he ever talked about this. And I know he's not so fond of the ET connection and angles on things. But anyway, I'm just going to mention it now because there's a lot of fascinating stuff happening here in this scene. So part of it, if we go to the lower left, this is him like walking out of frame. He's talked about stuff being thrown, and yeah, we caught an object. It's going to become clear what it is. Then in the background, way in the distance, of course I'm always scanning the skies, I saw enough to show me, oh boy, like where this circle is, we're going to see craft, I know it. And then we have like behind him where I saw like these beings. So see this curve in the upper right hand corner? That's the roll of his jacket right there. So the being would have been like back there, and it's exactly where I saw things looked a little different, hazy and smoky over the landscape. Anyway, over here to the lower right, we see this. Now, this is happening right over this ridge, or this stand of trees. That's happening here. And already I'm seeing regular little dots happening in a row on a rim, and I'm seeing like a different kind of spherical object, and it's all craft. So I invite you just to go look at that show. I'm not going to belabor it here too much, but I have things noted, like that's the head and the face and the eyes, and over here too is another one, because where there's one Sasquatch, there's usually at least a pair, and if not a whole like clan. Lower left-hand corner, again, it's just something popped up different on my camera. This got all weird, and that's where I start to see it. Like, oh my gosh, that's a Sasquatch. And back here too, right? So anyway, I'm going to keep going. This is where we got backlighting, like that's the head and the eyes. But I invite you to just, when you have time, go ahead and look and see if you see what I'm seeing. Again, here, I totally see a face. That's like the conical part of the head going down to the shoulder. There's a little bit of light interference, but these are the legs and the feet down here. Anyway, again, happening beyond Steve. We go into this now, just to show you really quick. That object looks like a head with a neck and like feet, something like flying. Again, this is moving this way, so this here, where I'm saying the head would be over here, and the trajectory is that way. So this looks like some kind of, if not an organic being, then it's a craft made to look like, or object made to look like an organic being. Look at it, it almost looks like a plesiosaurus, I think it is, like a dinosaur swimming one. And it's got like tufted cloud plasma around it, so traveling with it. So I do believe this is a cloaking object, for sure, and that's the plasma we're seeing around it, clinging to it. This looks like a, again, almost like lizard-like, like a face with an eye. But again, this could just be a craft, and these are the parts and pieces. But it has like a body, and then look at like a fin or tail fin at the back is symmetrical. So I see also like a pipe that could be shooting out the plasma. So it's a craft. It's either a living organism or a craft that looks like one with plasma around it, and it's shooting so fast across. So it belongs to whatever's over here, and it's heading in that direction of a bigger craft happening beyond in the background, which I'll show real quick here. So where the yellow circle is, that's where I started to say we have these little points. They're in a regular pattern and spacing, so we know we're dealing with machine parts. And we have this object here. We look down on the lower left, I'm blowing it out a little bit more. It's way in the distance, and I'm taking it from somebody else's footage, so it's a little bit mappy. However, there's enough to see that the stuff that I was saying, these little regularized points in the upper right-hand corner, we see they belong to, yes, it looks like a metallic sphere of some kind with little holes in it that would be shooting out the plasma. That looks like another standalone kind of object, or craft. And then this looks like a bigger craft because we have a straight edge line. So this thing is flying off the deck of a bigger craft that's poised above this. Would we see it? No, because it's all particulate and hazy. And if I hadn't been looking day in and day out at the skies and doing what I do, I wouldn't even detect that. But the beauty is when we do some enhancements, just with the camera phones, this can be done on the camera phone or on a bigger program on a laptop. We start to see machine parts. This is a pure edge and stuff. This is the tops of the trees below, and this is something, this is the trees, and this is something happening above. Definitely we have activity with shapes and holes and machine parts. And actually, let me help reference this a little bit better, if I can get a fix on it as well. I'm trying to see where this is. Maybe you can help me find it. This piece is attached to, I think we're looking at, no, hang on. Oh, see this here? Okay, that's here. So we're not going to be able to see it one-to-one comparison. This I've made so bright because I was trying to find this object. And this one, I turned down the brightness, so we're not going to see that object, but we're going to see other things pop up to the right of it. All right, I'm going to move along, though. All right, I'm going to point you on to show number 186 for this, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it here. But I started to notice the way the clouds were breaking. It seemed like there was a curve, and then I started putting more enhancement, and I started to find it. This is not a lens flare. This is a massive object. I want to say it is a planetary body. It might be on a different dimension, or just so heavily clouded out and cloaked in a way we don't understand that it's still in our dimension, but we just can't see it. But I have a feeling it's in a different dimension, but the camera could catch it. There's a huge hole, and there's an object flying out of it, okay? Oops, sorry. So this is in show number 186. It's here, it's huge, and it's a partially cloaked planet nearby. Okay, again, is it in our dimension or not? Not totally sure yet. To the right, with more enhancement, we see it's like a huge crater, and something is flying out of it or in the foreground flying off of this thing. I invite you to go look at that show for more details and, blow by blow, kind of pun intended, this looks like the blowhole on top of a whale. But play by play, what might be going on in this scene. Now, looking in the foreground, what gets interesting is we have a line. If we look to the right, that's there. We start to see this curve, right, with this stick-like thing. So we go to the lower left, and we start to see something that looks like rigid structure. We got perpendicular lines to each other with this curve. Now, that's really blown out with contrast and brightness. We go over here and we start to see a stick, and that's starting to look very much like some type of craft. And again, this looks like something is coming out of this hole and flying off. All right, now we're going to go to Australia again. And again, these are submitted by, this time JM near Brisbane. And again, thank you, JM, if you're watching this. But JM is looking off in the distance in the horizon and just sees stuff, and I think mainly notices this kind of stands out and other things too. Well, and also I think JM had a dream the night before, and it involved a being, which I had no idea. I just got this footage actually from somebody else on behalf of JM, and was just said, oh, can you see what's up there? Only later, when I found a being in this scene, which is that, I'm going to zoom ahead a minute, which is this down here, a being in a craft. Then I was told later, oh yeah, JM did, like the night before, have a dream that there was a craft with a being in it. So I'm like, oh wow, maybe I did really catch what I thought I caught. Anyway, all that to say, looking at this with some enhancement in the upper left-hand corner, I start to see parallel lines. So I'm like, okay, we got structure. All I need to see is the first hint of the rigid geometry, and we're dealing with craft. Now, the way this looks different tells me this overall thing is one huge craft. Again, we're looking over here in relation to the road. I mean, it's big. Now I start to see a perfect disc. So let's look over here to the right. I see a perfect disc, like a bowl, shallow bowl with a circle, right? We start to see these things almost look like ribs, or some kind of like fingers coming up like parallel to each other. So something's going on of intelligent design here, okay? So we keep looking lower left, and now I start to see edges here and, on that little disc. Like a straight line, and we start to see other weird things, a hole over here, curve, right? Then this, if you look right here at C.3, that's where it's going to get interesting, and that's where I kind of find this, what looks like a being, flying a craft. We don't see it yet, though, So now still I'm just kind of putting a little more enhancement, zooming in a little more to see what we can see. I zoom in even much more now just to see what I can find, but we see a perfect hole here. We see this looks like a tube on its side. I'm going to leave this to you to check out even more things. So at first I'm thinking, okay, we got a craft that's like being towed or part of a bigger craft over here, and maybe this too is just like something that's like docked up to a craft, or this is the machine parts of a bigger craft sticking out of the cloak. Whatever the case, this is definitely like stamped or tooled metal, you know, feel to it. Then we come down, and again, we were looking at those little finger-like things over here, and that dish things over here, just to give you reference in the upper left. But then I started to see something else that looked like a standalone, where I have all these arrows. This looks like a standalone craft. And then I looked right here where my arrow is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks like the head and shoulders, torso, and neck of a being flying in a craft. And then I thought, am I really seeing what I'm seeing? So I zoom in on C7. And I come down here, actually we'll go to C8. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump diagonal from upper left-hand corner to lower right. So I'm looking, and all of a sudden I have a eureka moment, like, am I really seeing what I'm seeing? I come down here, and because of the color signatures, I'm like, oh my God, I think we caught a being driving a craft, if this is even possible, flying one. Because we have green, you know, all this kind of plasma stuff is green. But the color signature of what's happening within here is warmer color. So the more I zoomed in, I'm like, gosh, I think we got the torso and the head of a being sitting in a little shallow cockpit on this little kind of almost like a little land cruiser craft. We definitely have a pipe coming at us. So I know this is some kind of machine parts. So then let's go to the left-hand side, and then we see, this is what I traced over. I zoomed in on this part. It seems like this is like a dome. And this is the head and the face and the little torso, the neck of a guy sitting there. And the pipes coming out in the front. And we have straight lines here off the back. And this looks like, you know, the back end of this overall thing. Symmetrical, has a stick. So see what you see. The upper right, I just took out all the color to try to look at it in a different way, to make sure I was seeing what I was really seeing. And I'm still convinced that this is a very rigid machine part, almost like a panhandle on the back of a craft with pipes in the front. And this looks like exactly where a little being would sit. So I'm pretty sure we have evidence of a being sitting there flying a craft. And when we go back up in the upper left-hand corner, now that you see what I'm seeing, you can almost see it. It's like there's a vapor trail and then the actual little craft, and the guy's just toting along. Or girl, whoever. All right, now we go back up and focus in on this part to see if we can see anything. I zoom in, I zoom in. And the part I only want to emphasize now is there is kind of like a tracing of a pure circle. But I just want to zoom in on B2 and just show you there's structure in there. And I leave that to you to look on more on your own. Lower right is just a reminder that nature loves us. And I was looking at the shadow on a wall of a bunch of plants and just saw right away a heart. So it's a little love note from nature. That was for me, and I share it with you. All right, I just need to clear my throat for a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. We'll see how much longer my voice holds out. I don't usually, aside from these shows, talk this much. Okay, I'm just going to send you over to 188 straight up and go look at this show, please. This happens to be, for whatever reason, I've been severely shadow banned so that none of my videos are showing any high numbers anymore, even for views. Yet somehow, by magic, and thankfully, this is the only show, as far as my longer shows, not a shorts, that hit over 2,000 views. So it did get circulated. Now, this is one where I caught it walking through a room. Like I say, I saw a TV, a really large TV in a room. I saw it from across the room, actually. And I saw this big as day, and I'm like, wow, am I really seeing what I'm seeing? That's not a lens flare, I knew right away. So, of course, you know, I walked over to the TV. People were watching it who don't understand some of this stuff. So I just said, oh, hey, do you mind if I take a picture for a screenshot? Can we turn off the lights so I don't have, you know, I didn't want light glare and things interfering with what I was seeing. So I turned off the lights in the room and I took a picture of the screen and walked away. So here's with enhancement. You know, this is like the final, one of the final results. This is a planetary body. This is the same planetary body down here. You see the lower right-hand corner that I picked up in the other show. This at the Masters was at an Easter, and the other one down here that I saw in a neighborhood was maybe like 10 days ahead of that, or even less. Let me just see. Yeah, less than 10 days ahead of time. I saw this in Florida. Less than 10 days later, I see this over Georgia, Augusta, Georgia, just on the TV. This was a live program, and even the commentator, okay, this is what you would have seen to the right on the screen. So the commentator just goes, I guess it's some condensation on the lens. Well, if you know what you're looking at, no, that's a freaking planetary body. So anyway, I'll go through the progression. So we go A1. I'm putting a little more enhancement and stuff too. A little more, and I start to see holes and craters. We do a little more, and we start to see a really big hole in here. So, tongue-in-cheek, I'm saying biggest hole ever. The golfer didn't realize they're going for the hole in the fairway and the green. They don't know that there's a huge hole right here if they could hit it that far, right? So the reason why I'm bringing it up about the hole too is compared to my previous show on 186, I believe that's the hole that we're looking at here, and that we're just seeing that this planet has rotated up on a different side. So in no case is it a lens flare. There's no way. You zoom in on this, there's a rim, it's a crater, there's stuff coming out of it. Is it going to cause us any problem? No, no fear here. Everything that we've been taught about gravity and other planetary bodies, I believe is completely incorrect. If this thing truly were sitting there, as I think it is, it's either in a different dimension where it can't possibly affect us, so don't freak out. And even if it were in the same reality, in a different, in the same dimension, it's not creating tidal waves, earthquakes, or whatever. It was there and nothing happened to the Earth. So that's why I'm saying these are not what we think they are. So this may not be a true planetary body. It might be a construct like a spaceship. And so those rules of whatever people are worried about, like catastrophic effects on the planet, do not apply. Or gravity and everything that we have been told, even about other planetary bodies, are not what we, are not as we have been told. But I think this is a planetary body-sized craft, much like, yes, I believe the moon is a construct as well. Just like Star Wars gave the hint drop or predictive programming saying, that's no moon, it's a space station. All right, lower right-hand corner. Again, we just have more of that structure. I showed that earlier. I'm going to move along for time's sake. So again, just more progressions. Now these wavy lines are just the effect of my camera interacting with a screen on the TV. So just kind of pretend those aren't there. But what was interesting is not even just that this is emerging more and more as an actual planetary body or a craft. The thing that was interesting was in the background, we have a moment where some of the plasma and the stuff blown in there to camouflage stuff, we have a clearing. And again, I think this was intentional to kind of give people like me a window of, yes, it's there. And to me, this is like the end of a pipe or a craft that's supposed to blow the camouflage, the smoke and mirrors over this thing. And it temporarily stopped, so it either broke or it was an intentional pause so people like me could catch this and share it with everybody. So again, I think this is a big pipe that's supposed to shoot out the plasma, or it's a craft that does it. And it stopped for a moment so that this could be caught and shared, because this was a live transmission, a live show. I caught it like a recording of it, though, like the next day. And I didn't watch it live, but I know the people who did. And they even commented, the commenter said, that is weird that it's a circular condensation is what they were saying. Anyway, people like you and I know there's much more to it, and that it's not condensation or lens flare. So here, again, this looks like some type of craft or machine part. I'm not sure which we're looking at, but it's an object. And here we go. We can just see it's got rigid geometry to it. Now, with extreme enhancement and color saturation, we can see red color coming out of this. I do talk about this planetary body can be referred to, maybe that's Wormwood Star, or it can be called the Red Dragon, or it can be called, it's referred to maybe, I think, by many names. I don't think they're all accurate for what it is. In this case, I also simply think it's an artificial construct that looks like a planetary body. All right, upper left-hand corner. Looking at this overall scene looked weird. It looked like the imprint of a huge triangle. But more than that, I started seeing little things here and there. And then this started to look like, I know it's pareidolia, but it started to look like a lion cub where you'd see the face and the ears and the body lying there. And so to the right here, it seems more like, again, like a little face, like a little lion. But we start to see there's independent craft, weird things happening. And so this is near the show. Oh yeah, it's 189. I just call it Sky Lion Cub. So looking at this, zooming in, down in the lower right-hand corner, this is what you see when we zoom in even more with contrast and stuff. And we just see, I think there's a bunch of different cloaking craft creating this overall effect of whatever we're looking at. And lots of different craft, probably. And over here, lower left, was the alternate cover slide, because in another scene coming up, you'll see with a lot of enhancement and stuff, I started to see a face looking at us, almost like a sphinx, you know, the arm. This looks like two eyes, a nose, and weird, like, snaggly teeth, and the mouth smiling, and another, you know, cloaking craft happening off to the side. Again, this all might just be pareidolia. And here's just more views on that quote-unquote lion cub. So with more enhancement, we see separate objects, and then we can clearly see these are like craft, you know, doing their own thing. Upper left looked weird to the naked eye. To the right, with more enhancement, just started to see these pure ellipses with lines across. I think, again, it's just to kind of distract and like, hey, look at the lines, so that you miss the big, you know, ellipses happening beyond. Oh, and this is just a zoom up of that other craft from here. This lower left-hand corner. This is like an extreme zoom in on that to see like a little separate craft. Okay, these are some of those ellipses off that other view with the, you know, again, like the chemtrail going across, so we can't quite see this beyond to distract us from it. Here's a elongated triangle with a hole in it. And then down here, that overall scene that we have going on up here, the top two shots, we look down here, and it gets very interesting. The lower left, as I started putting the different enhancements, doing the different enhancements, I started to see that it looks like a ball up here that's really dark. Maybe a hole is in it. And then with even more enhancement, we see that's a whole different color, and it's a reddish sphere. So very interesting. All right, now we're looking at those ellipses that I was talking about. Look at this. This has patterning, little holes in it. So that's a huge craft. And over here as well. And then we look down here. Actually, from the upper right, I put discs, flying shields, hubcaps. What are we looking at? Because look at this. These are hardened circular rims with like it looks like a hubcap. And here too, with like something even in the center. And these are two pipes. So we got a massive craft going on up here. Because going back, that's these. They're huge. All right. Lower right, I was just trying to get at what are these like stick-like things. Or actually, it's up here. Upper left is what's down here, lower right. Excuse me. So just with extreme enhancement, we just see these are like stick-like things with plasma cloaking over them. All right, upper left, it just looked weird. Don't need to explain it. Looks like a triangle. Upper right, with enhancement, we see holes within this triangle and sticks that are parallel. That's a huge cloaking object. Lower left is at night, and then we start to see this face. And at the right-hand side with the enhancement there, you see it even more. We also see a pure circle up here, and there's some kind of like imprint in it, and a straight line with some dots. So we got huge craft. This is part of all huge craft or several craft. See, got the face, then we start to see a circle and a line. And over here too, there's something going on. There's a pure circular rim on whatever this shield is, either like a shield or who knows what. All right, lower left at nighttime is at the bottom, just look weird. And then with enhancement, we see something's happening there. And then a little bit more over here to the right is this whole figure, a little more enhancement. Just like too many rigid, straight lines with shadows, things happening. So it's a craft. Here, this is weird. I don't have the original to show you. You'd have to go back to the original show on March 29th, 2023. But I can tell you, this was really weird. Here's tree line at the top. It was very low, very close to where I was. And there's these sticks, these pipes, and machine parts all over the place. Ooh, I'm going to have to hang on one more moment. Okay, I'm back. We got, this one's called show number 190, Skycat and UFO. And that's because the lower picture is what I saw with a naked eye. And it kind of was like looking like a craft, and this was starting to look like a cat head with the back and the tail. So with enhancement, this is what I was saying. It looks like a UFO is lifting up a cat. You know, if the head is here and the arms, the body, and the tail. It looks like it's like lifting it up, or it's like drifting along with it, right? So anyway, color signatures, really eye-opening. You know, above is with enhancement, so we're only getting warm glow here, but not way all over here. You know, so we got cloaking craft beyond, you know, self-illuminating. Here's with more enhancement, we see You know, there's an object here that looked like the cat is made up of several different craft, and this is one big one, continuous one. Here's again looking at what I'm just calling the cat. There's like a pipe shape, and you'll start to pick out the triangle and different things. Lower left, naked eye, just look, you know, like a standalone craft. We go in with the enhancements, and actually two, because you see pure triangle here, pure triangle here. And I drew it just to, you know, emphasize separate triangle and a hard line, dealing with craft. What is this? Upper left, that's no natural cloud. I've never seen one that's skinny and just forms on the spot nearby and goes up into the sky like that. So with enhancement, we see that there's a different craft here. This is probably made up of multiple craft. We keep zooming in and we see some weird activity over here. Lower left, we start to see some circular objects, and I break it down over here. This is one I recommend you go see the source show on, because there was so much happening with that. All right, here, I'm just going to go quickly, you know, original on the left, the most enhanced to the right, and we start to see totally different color glow than everything else going on around it. A bright glare out, red, yellow, pink. We have a cutout here with perfect symmetry of some kind of object happening there. A little more different enhancement, we just see different kind of glow source and different objects hiding within the glare. And then we see that this object is really interesting at C.2. It really does look like a little rocket with a little fin flying up. Alright, this is toward evening, but there was weird lines that were parallel, so with more enhancement, this is the progression from left to right. We see like little pipe type things. We see, you know, this thing, which I could draw lines over it, which looks like a little triangular craft, and there were little holes. What else is going on here, I don't know, but there's a lot of structure in this thing. Alright, upper left, there's just that, like, again, otherworldly glow happening, so I know we had high dimensional beings probably showing up. And again, confirmation, because we got a totally different signature of color there versus here. The more we, you know, zoom into it, we got a lot of different color signatures. We keep going more, we even see this looks like a face or a person, but I think that's pareidolia. But I do think we have like a stick-like, or, you know, almost looks like a piece of wood kind of craft coming out of here. We got holes back here. So we got a lot of cloaking objects for sure. This is zooming even more. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. Zooming in even more, that's why I was saying this looks like a face. This is like two eyes and a nose of some kind of little being. And this would be like the shoulders, like if it's wearing a black long sleeve shirt, like facing this way in line with whatever the craft is. Looks like something, machine part behind him or chair. So if we want to look at it as a little being, it could be a little being flying, you know, toward us in a craft, and the front of it's here. Or it's pareidolia, but this still is a craft. And this is definitely some kind of sphere with some like pitted crater surfaces on it. And then this is just looking at it all another way. But this black thing is definitely an object, with this being the plasma material kind of clinging to it. And we have a separate triangular form here. Alright, again, this otherworldly glow, cyan with a warm tone in the front. And that's again a sign for me that our special higher dimensional beings have shown up. And again, it feels euphoric. Feels, you know, just look at it with wonder. Something weird's going on here, I'm not sure what, but we see again like kind of a reddish glow sphere with different colors happening around it and spikes of illumination. Alright, I'm just going to fly through this and refer you to look at show 191 called Look Up Again, Biggest Holes Ever, because at another golf tournament not long after the Masters, on that, it was on a Sunday, the Masters, on Easter, I believe. Anyway, not long after was this other tournament, Invited Celebrity Classic, and at Las Colinas course. Anyway, I started looking at this one scene and took a still off the TV, and I noticed the sphere starting to start up over to the left of the flags, the flagpoles. Started to see more and more sphere. And then, you know, just going with the progression, follow my cursor, lower right-hand corner. We even see craters, big craters on a reddish kind of object. And there's a lot more going on in here. But for now, that was just my focus, because again, you can see over here, this is the line of a ball, and, you know, it looks like almost like a bowling ball with these like holes in it. And here's a bigger view. If you follow my cursor, there it is with the holes. And, you know, on and on and on. So I trace the line of where it is. Looks like something's flying up out in front of it. Yeah, see what you think about all that. This I'm going to gloss over pretty quick, but it's fascinating. And I recommend you see another YouTube channel called Industrial Surrealism, where this person, this guy, I think Sean over in New Orleans, started also like doing what I'm doing, but did it to with better drawing tools and took more time with it to trace the objects. But he has a great eye on what he was also noticing, patterns in the sky, and you start to see these things. And so anyway, I recommend you go check out that channel. He, I think, started over 9, maybe 10 years ago, 7 to 10 years ago, I can't remember. But fascinating stuff over there. Anyway, what I want to note is 192 in the Sky Ups, New York, an Industrial Surrealism show. Go check that one out. Some ospreys started showing up in lower, I guess, off of lower Manhattan somewhere. This came in from another very kind Lavender Sky Panther viewer who's lived in New York for a very long time, for decades, and noticed I've never seen ospreys showing up. What the heck's going on? Now, this is already contrasted and enhanced photo. The one below is the original. But looking at the lower left, that Statue of Liberty there, already looking at this, I see these straight lines above the ospreys. So I knew we have cloaking craft. So you look up in the upper left corner, we see a darker craft with like plasma in front of it. Darker lines here too, more craft. This one too. But beyond that, we look here and we got massive craft happening back here because we have parallel lines. So we look to the right, and here we go. Look at this. These are even little possible windows or vent holes. I mean, we got line, line, line. These are all parallel. You know, this is all a craft assembly. Now, I did pull up what ospreys are. They've been featured in different movies, like I think it's called Godzilla versus Monsters, or Gods and Monsters with Godzilla. That's the one with the three-headed thing, whatever it's called. Not Gojira, what is it? I can't remember the name. Like Godira or something like that. Anyway, like a three-headed reptilian type thing. Anyhow, these ospreys show up in that movie. But anyway, it was very atypical. You know, I heard from my the friend of the channel. So I'm just noting what they are and how they work. Okay. Now this is excerpts from Industrial Surrealism's channel, and I did get permission from Sean over there. So thanks, Sean, if you're watching this. Anyway, I love what he's uncovered. And he's got, you know, more fancy, you know, renderings and things of all these things which are just beautiful. And already looking at this, I'm like, I'm sure I've seen the cloaked version with the hole and the triangular form. So he just goes ahead and shows you and compares sizes of what some of the different craft that we could be seeing are up in the sky. He does beautiful kind of like a walk-through pseudo-animation where, like, here he's seeing what you would see to the naked eye, like I'm showing you. But it gives you more sophisticated, beautiful renderings of what these things are instead of just like the stick figure lines I show you. So this is a nice, sophisticated generation of kind of what I do. And again, I wasn't aware of his channel. There was a very kind viewer of the channel who tipped me off to go look at this. So thank you, too, if you were watching. Because I was really happily, you know, excited to find out what Industrial Surrealism was doing. Now, he even shows, like if you take a Euro, look in the background here, and he shows you that it's, you know, hidden in plain sight, that they're showing us these sophisticated, you know, craft even on the nodes of the Euro. And lots of other things are going on. So do take a look at that show. I highly recommend you look at the show to find even more about his work on his channel. So here's just more views of how you can see these are cloaking crafts sticking out once you know what you're looking for. Down here is an interesting blow-up where I talk about possible windows. These are either possible windows, but now that I look at it, I think they're pipes that are sticking out toward us in a regular fashion, marching along. All right, just more different views and contrast and saturation parts looking at these things. Down here, actually we can go top and then bottom. So at the top, we're looking at this, bottom we're zooming in. Here we see it up here above the osprey, and down here we're zooming in just to see a little more. Again, sometimes with different colors and things, we see things in different ways. Then I just wanted to show that the Statue of Liberty of itself has a weird aura, or, you know, something happening around it. And that it, by itself, there's no light on, or the lamp isn't on, and yet it has a brighter illumination near the quote-unquote, you know, torch that quote-unquote she is holding. So something's going on with the energies surrounding the Statue of Liberty itself. And I defer to people like YouTube channel Sugar Seas, who are masterful at finding more of these things out and really diving into some of these things with the energetics and energies and grid things happening around some of these quote-unquote monuments. Okay, lower left, It's just to illustrate that now we were looking up here, but now looking down here, over here to the left, even that we see as a craft, and where you can even pick out holes and such. All right, now we're going to shift back to Miami, because shortly after I heard about these osprey down to the lower left in New York, all of a sudden I was doing some sky watching and these fly overhead, and I know this area for over 50 years and I've never seen these fly. They were heading south toward what is located down that way is a Homestead Air Force Base. And so I'm like, what are these guys doing flying to the base? But I zoomed in, you know, and I'm like, and why the timing? I've never seen these ever. And now I hear from one person they're over in New York, and within, let's see how many days, well, within the same week, then suddenly these popped up over where I was. I zoomed in on the ones that I saw. These two flew over from the north to the south. And I zoom in, and what I found interesting was, again, what are these color signatures? Why is it like purple here and then goes to indigo toward the back? Are these real? Are they hologram? Are they real but camouflaged in a certain way? I don't know. Or this was just, I don't know, something with the camera. But I shouldn't be able to see different auras, so it's really pretty wild. See what you think on that. All right, this just stood out like a sore thumb. This is going perfectly across, and it's dark, and everything else is lighter. And this is really low in the sky. So this is about all I could get out of it. It might be two different craft, cloaking in an overall little system, if you will. There's a stick at the front. Upper left, just weird lighting effects. Again, different ways of camouflaging stuff in the light or in a glow. And the more we move in, something's cloaking there. I just can't quite get at it. This was interesting. It happened right overhead as I was watching. And again, these things will show you what they are, and then they fade away fairly quickly. So this was giving me like a little heart. Warm glow. We got some holes. Excuse me. We come down. And we see there's a different, hold on one second. Pardon all the breaks, guys, just to clear my throat, but I see I've been talking too much. But I do want to cover this whole show in one part, part 4, and not break it up further. All right, so here we go. So there's some other self-illumination going on in here, something weird happening at the quote-unquote top of this thing. So I couldn't get at too much more other than this is highly anomalous, so very interesting. This one gets real exciting. Okay, I was so distracted with seeing this bigger sphere, I didn't even know what I was going to find at B. B turns into this down here. Look how clear this is. This looks like an actual freaking cannon. Called the show Cloud Cannon, cloud in quotes. Look at how smooth and rigid that line is. I mean, you can almost see it's like cast iron or something. It feels like that. Perfect rim, and here it is in relationship to this ball. I would love, love, love to see all of that without all of the smoke and mirrors. What the heck are we looking at? Anyway, we take B and we look over here. We zoom in a little bit more. There is some kind of object aligned with this opening. So is this thing, was it shot out of here or it's on its way flying into here? Hard to say. But there's also interesting texture happening beyond. So I think there's another craft beyond this whole thing. Look at that. See what you think is happening in the scene. Lower right is extreme contrast and color saturation. So we can make out these objects. That's an object, and so is this. All right, upper left, weird little assembly. I'm not going to spend actually any time on these because I really need to keep advancing. But the interesting thing on this one will be A. If you look down on the lower right, we got weird stuff happening all over what's supposed to be the sun. But this looks really interesting. So when we look at that A element, let me just jump down here. It's here at A3. It's all prismatic, and weird stuff's happening all over this thing. These three are different scenes, so looking over here, just something different, looked different in the lighting and the color. So we see stuff with different color signatures happening compared to this. And we see like machine parts. So with extreme enhancement on the lower left-hand corner, we see there's different objects happening in there. Okay, again, that wondrous light showed up. And then we see backlit kind of objects or imprints. So to the right, with more extreme everything, we see like a diamond or kite shape here. We see like weird, circular stuff or semicircular. Look at the color signatures. Why is this cyan? Well, this is a darker blue, and this is raspberry, and this is just a different color glow. And then we come down here, looking in this whole area. Again, this is this over here. And then we just, again, see just all kinds of different things pop out. All right, to the left, that looked pretty conspicuous, we look to the right, and that's why. We do have a hardened object covered in plasma. And zooming in a little more, we see it with a vapor trail coming behind it. This one I took out of a car window while I was at a stoplight. It looked to the left of me, and there it was. Okay, the lower right-hand corner, look at this. It just looked weird. That's on an angle, that's straight. There's other weird stuff happening. To the right, we have a different color signature. We have a truncated triangle, enough in there to show you it's Cloak and Craft. This is going to move through very quickly, but I'd like to shine a little light on the YouTube channel called Fife Weather. Fife Weather over there has been doing this every day, day in and day out, showing a time lapse over about 5 different cities in the UK and Scotland, from what I gather. And the cameras are positioned. There are has them set at like 2.5 minutes to progress you from the morning wee hours to the nighttime. And you can see the rising of the sun is very interesting. You start to see the golden sun chased by the artificial sun, which then covers in front of it and masks it out. And there are other details of Cloak and Craft. Now, over there at Fife Weather, I'll just say he for now because I see the icon, but I can't point out and for whatever reason and show you what's being seen. But you can tell by the thumbnails posted that they over there, I'll just say team, has an eye for when there's Cloak and Craft and stuff, and they're just not going to point it out. Now, that whole channel got severely shadow banned because it won't even show likes showing up. But if Fife Weather, you're listening or find this, kudos to you, and thank you for doing all you do. And because I enjoy seeing what's going on up in the UK, and I watch the skies and I watch your stuff every day, even if my likes or comments don't come through to you. All right, anyway, even another YouTube channel, Hopkinson, caught some of this too, and that helped bring my attention, even though I watch Fife Weather every day, that there was like this object, right? So we see that. So I used my enhancement, and sure enough, we've got this like red ball. And everywhere every which way it's with enhancement on it, it's clearly a separate object. So again, that's kind of pointing to the thing similar. I mean, there might be many of these things, now that I think about it, all over the planet, It's very similar to the thing that I've been seeing. And this is another view in another place, and it's also catching this thing. So just more of the same. I think it's an artificial construct, like a craft. All right, lower left-hand corner, this just looked weird. These things kind of crisscrossing over each other in a very strange way. And right here, we see a huge object. And here I'm going to focus on this part, not this up here, because I start to see one hole and a second hole. This thing is diving down, and they're all bunches of little holes, much like holes on a recorder or flute, Not the right spacing, but you know what I mean. This is a line, this is a parallel line. We see reflectance off the opening of this thing, and that's what I see. All right, upper left-hand corner, this looks like a craft coming in and out of state or something, hard to tell. That's the scale, so I'm just standing on a pavement watching this thing. And here, as we zoom in, there's texture. This, and looking from above, it looks like a rowboat. That's the front, and that's the flatter back of it. Really wild. And this is still the same thing, moving along in different kinds of enhancement. I recommend you go look at that show because I don't remember what I was getting at over here. All right, and I think this is one of the final clusters of stuff. Well, nope, I'm wrong. We're getting toward the end, though, I think. So thank you for your patience and bearing with me on all this stuff. What I wanted to do with these 4 parts of shows is just kind of like really cram in the highlights from those 198 shows, at least in one place in 4 parts. So we're talking, there's probably going to be overall with the 4 parts, 9 hours of running time versus 90 or 100. So I felt it really important to do this for anybody just coming on or waking up and getting aware to all of this now. All right, this was in the sky, kind of lone figure. Told me it's craft just by looking at it there. But we get all the way to this level where we see there's a different energy signature than anywhere else, and this looks like a pipe coming toward us, and there's, pardon my little cursor from before on the screenshot, but then we have the end of a pipe right there. Oh, and also the very straight line at the bottom. Okay, this thing started to look weird, so again, plus this down below, and whatever this is. So with enhancement, I'm just following my cursor. We're going to go all the way down here. We start to see a hole at the top, and then to the lower right, I think we're dealing with multiples racked up together. So like, pointed ellipse in the front, this other shape, and these are independent shapes. I think they're all like docking together. And there's a hole back here in this line, or it could be one overall craft, but see it more. I'm reading it more as independent things. See what you think, though. All right, this one's weird. That's what I'm seeing to the naked eye in the upper left. How do we have something that looks triangular, triangular, flat line, and then it banks up? It goes up vertical, or dog legs, sharp, with another object at the end of it. So we go down, the lower left, and we see it more and more with enhancement. And look, we have a stick and a stick. Those are symmetrical coming off of something else. So those are machine parts. We zoom in even more to the lower right, and there you go, stick and stick. They're mirroring each other off the side of this vertical thing. And this looks like a standalone triangle, and other weird stuff happening on this thing. Upper right-hand corner just looked interesting, and what I find very interesting in this is the color signature. Look where it is. It's only on this weird swirl anomaly thing. Very fascinating. Here's another example where it's just like a little fleet going along, like, hey, don't mind us. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's rather obvious, guys. So it's funny. And again, like I'm saying, sloppy cloaking, like it's intended for people like me, and by sharing with you, to start picking up on this stuff and getting the joke. And again, nothing threatening, just we're here. Hey, you want to see us? We'll show you a little more, a little more, a little more. Lower left-hand corner, weird-looking, quote-unquote, sun. I also started to see a path coming down where you see the A and B notes. So with enhancement, sure enough, there's a weird path and also kind of like a spirally looking thing or zigzag happening on the way down, or something clearly coming up, rising up out of the quote-unquote sun, or behind it, or at a portal, or at a craft sitting behind it, hard to say. But we have a clear path coming up, and at the end you'll see a triangular shape. So here's that quote-unquote sun with more enhancement. Look at this. You see this winding path. Looks like a, what do you call it? It looks like a vapor trail, coming from this. And then lower right-hand corner, we ultimately get to this shape. There it is. This is a craft sitting there, exactly like that. So what is this little contraption here at the bottom? This has straight lines. This clearly is popping up out of here like a jack-in-the-box. So it's like a craft showed up over in the vicinity of this, and this thing sprung out. Really wild. I'm always amazed what I find when I start putting enhancements on. Then the quote-unquote sun itself has rigid sticks and things poking out of it. So I'm not sure what to say about that, but see what you think. All right, this looked weird. Looks like, something standing there and holding its arms out in a V position. Well, look at this. Now I see it. This looks like the end of a craft. These are like more or less tapering lines to come to a point. So I think there's a huge craft nestled in on whatever this thing is. Look at the color signatures. Look at the abrupt, blue to red and then golden. And there's a craft sitting down there at the tip down here. At the upper right, if we look at it, that's like a craft sitting there on this wedge. And we see the top of a hole. We see holes. And this is a little triangular shape resting on whatever this is. It's like stuff coming and sitting on branches of a tree. Really weird. And then I think I zoom in on this thing below. But anyway, go to the source show on this one. I'm going to move along. The bottom, we just see, I saw weird hole-like things. This is weird down here. And look at, we got different glow. It looks like a figure 8. It looks like a number 18 blazing in the clouds. So there's a hole, and I think there's a triangular craft going this way. Down here, what are these things? It looks like a big hole with some inscription down here. These are supposedly clouds. Clouds don't do this. Yeah, I recommend you go look at that show too, because I think I zoom in on all that. And then down here is that this piece over here, this thing. So we start to get a look at that, and again we see craft in there. All right, lower left. This was bizarre. I was at a stoplight. I look over, and this is what I see. It's like this thing, perfect cutout, and this thing is just like almost like hovering by magnetic force perfectly in the middle of this thing. There's straight lines, so we know there's stuff cloaking all over the place in this thing. This is dog legging and whatever. So go see 198 Sky So Obvious if you want to check more on that out. I go into detail there too. Over here, lower right-hand corner, this was one of the most fascinating things. I call it Sky Running 198 because it reminds me of the movie Cool Running with the bobsled, the Jamaican bobsled team. Because to me, this looks like a bobsled, and we got the driver, going in, and then we got the guy that runs in the back, and I forget the names of each. I name them in the show, so forgive me. But whoever's doing the driving jumps in first, hops in, and then the guy pushing, jumps in after. This totally looks like two beings looking over at me. I'm driving alongside. I stopped and lowered the window and took a picture. Looking over at me or just past me and the guy's running and pushing the thing, and he's on his way hopping in. It's just crazy. And look at these like things coming up. This literally was not even a street away from me. This just happened right behind the tree, really low. I still can't believe that happened. So this is absolutely like ETs that are literally popping up and giving you a glimpse, and sometimes showing you more like this, because this is more clear to me that that's an object. This looks like maybe a, if it's not actual little beings, projected or whatever, this looks like another V shape on angle, you know, kind of craft stuck into something else. I don't know. This one was really mystifying. Be curious if anyone has any thoughts about that. But go check out that show to see more on that. That was really fascinating. Here we have, again, this just felt weird. It was like this beautiful glow with, I could tell, texture. So this is what we get, some kind of craft shooting up this way. Looks like a sphere down here with a hole on it too. So maybe this thing shot out of there and then expanded into that shape. I don't know. Over here, this was just, again, strange shape with enhancement. It looks like a bird, you know, with its wings down. Got weird 3 holes here. I think this is a case of where it's technology, craft, kind of emulating an organic form of a bird. Here, which is spectacular, weird glow, all this texture. I was very excited to see what this would do with enhancement, and this is what it did. Really bright patch up here, you know, backlighting. Maybe there's more craft like hiding in here, but really incredible. Very otherworldly light as well. Up here, upper left, I'm just going to move the cursor along from left to right. We have a progression. The more you look in here, the more you're going to find. The interesting thing here is up here at A, you know, you start to see something, you know, emerge with big holes in it and straight lines and dimension to it. So that's a whole craft, if not going on beyond that. And lower left, it was just an interesting glow, even though it's all grayscale. We go to the right, and bam, with enhancement, we get a warm glow in there. I mean, I knew there was something illuminating. That's what we get. Now, right below it, which I could not detect to the naked eye down here, is this looks like the side of a walnut. And it has a different color signature. So I'm going to say the way that's so pure with each line parallel to each other with a symmetrical feature at the center of it, with like a dome-like thing, a flattened dome, that is a craft in and of its own right. And I think there's even a hole there. And if you look over here compared to the trees, and the roof line would be like down here, that's still pretty darn big. And what it's doing in proximity to this glow and what's going on, I have no idea. But again, when I see a wondrous glow and I can't quite explain everything, I do have a feeling that's coming from much higher dimensional beings. Okay, now we really are close to the end of the show. Again, thank you for your patience. I have no idea what the running time is. Anyway, I wanted to end on a beautiful note. I did already recently put this on my community page, but I want to read this out loud for upliftment and a reminder of what we're all here, what we're really here for. And this was just kind of came through to me. I don't channel per se. I think I'm just like a walking direct link channel, kind of like I just know things and they just come out. Anyway, and I guess that is a form of channeling, but it's more like coming from source and my higher self, like directly through. Anyway, what I want to say is this. Wherever you are, love is. You already have everything you need at any given moment for yourself and to help others. Wherever you are, wherever you go. Everywhere you are, everywhere you go. Now, someone could say to me, hey, Varley, that's not true. I'm struggling, you know, in this 3D world. I can't pay this, do that, whatever. I can relate. I have been in those positions. And I can just tell you, as long as you have breath in your body and you keep putting one foot in front of the other, there's always a way. There's always some kind of solution that comes up, especially when you're emptied out and just in those moments where you look at the floor and you're hollow and you go, what more can I do? I have done everything I know I can do and try, and I still, you know, apparently like need this help, you know, to your higher team, your higher self and your angelic team, God, Jesus, whoever you look to up there, just say it. Hey, help, I got nothing. I've tried everything. Or if you haven't tried everything, just sit there and say, kindly show me. What do I need to know? Or where do I need to be for my highest and best good and the good of all? But mostly it's just in those moments where you're tapped out, got nothing, cannot see any way there's a solution. That's when it will appear, because you're never left completely in a bind or something tragic. And if we can just get to kind of like that fully emptied and neutral state, that is when some of the real magic can happen. and that we are in a total state of surrender. We're not resisting anything. We're not putting conditions on anything. And that's just when the right answer can flow and come in, and the assistance is granted. If you have the belief and the knowing that even though everything around you appears to be even maybe abysmal, you have it in your mind, say it in your mind or out loud. No, it's not what I think I'm seeing with my physical eyes. No, everything is happening for me, not to me. Everything is happening for me, not to me. And you say that, and things change on a dime, even in your worst of worst situations. And I'm speaking that from experience. Anyway, if you are in that position, I don't know why I'm going on that. I just want to say, I extend you right now. I hope you can feel it. Extra love, blessings, and protection for you and all whom you love. May you be uplifted. Consider yourself nurtured and hugged in a family hug way. And all is well in truth. All will be well. Trust and know. Just know in your heart. As long as you just, just say, hey, kindly show me whatever it is you think you need. And then just wait. There will be an answer. And it will be for you and not to you. All right, let me continue on. So this is the photo of the day and the close of the show, as I would say in my earlier sky shows. And I wanted to say thanks for wandering around here a while, because I always put puns in those. Wand, this is my little sassafras root that I mentioned earlier in the show that I use as a little pointer, a wand, and some things. After I was doing all of my longer sky shows, up to 198, I then morphed in and was called to start doing some little card readings, more for the collective. So that's why the whole bulk of the newest shows I have started to become all about this, and giving words, wisdom, and spirit of the day in this form, through cards and through other things. And then also crystals were involved, and I've done a lengthy kind of overview of crystals, if you want to see that right ahead of these part 4 of the Cloak and Craft shows. Anyway, I want to say thank you thanks for stopping by. If you want to contact me, I have 2 different emails in the description area below. One is if you even want to send me sky photos, if something has you intrigued and you can't quite pull it out on your own. If I can do it, I can take a look and maybe enhance it and shoot it back to you. Or, any questions or comments, I do offer some other services that you can see that are in the description area below. At this point, I'm just entertaining them if you want to shoot me an email, and we can communicate and see what you might need and what your situation is, and work something out. And until I post anything further on that, just want to say again, kindly get out there on your own. Also start taking pictures and looking to the skies. No fear. If anybody starts to paint a picture of a fear narrative, now that you've watched this show and maybe some of the other parts, be the kind voice that says, hey, hold on, don't believe what you see with your physical eyes. Go inside, feel it out with your heart. Is it friend or foe? Is this just some put up and we're being false flagged? The answer to me is going to be yes. But just know there are plenty of other benevolent beings up there, and don't be fooled by what you hear or see, by the very entities that are trying to keep us enslaved on this planet. And who own the media still at this point. There may be a time where the media flips and becomes, run by quote-unquote good hands. You'll know that when things are happy stories and not negative fear propaganda pushed on us. All right, well, that's all I'm going to say for now. And as I always close, I'd like to say it and mean it from my heart. Tremendous peace and love to you. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.